would help. Hello, and everyone. Welcome to the Knights of Last Call. My name is Derek Melendo, welcoming you back to another exciting live stream. I'm joined by my two co-hosts. That's right, everybody is here tonight.
How about that?
We got Bob and Smith.
Not sick today. Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, Bob, you were...
Well,
you were
stomach
a little
bug is... Well, I was sick with a sinus infection, and I was fine, but I would just be coughing nonstop. And actually, while you guys were streaming, I was coughing nonstop.
And if you remember some of the early Knights of Last Call episodes, you will know that Bob's reoccurring and consistent cough is a real
spring and fall.
That's right.
But then I got hit with that norovirus or stomach bug just recently, and that thing swept through everyone.
What's that?
Is that shot off?
What is?
Go back to Bob.
All right, Bob. What up?
It feels like that's high.
Oh, yeah, I do feel really tall today. Or maybe
and we can't see your table porn.
Oh, man.
Is the camera messed up?
Maybe. I don't know.
I look good over there.
Derek's going to be overthinking it.
I'm going to be overthinking that here in a second. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it is zoomed in a little bit. All right, I'll fix it. So anyways, tonight we are going to be talking about something that I know nothing about.
I mean,
children
and family
by proxy.
I have none of that.
No, actually, that's not true. I think.
Aren't you an uncle?
Yeah.
We should talk about your uncle.
Well,
we should talk about your cousin.
Yeah,
and we definitely need to talk about your dad.
Yeah. I don't want that.
I don't know what part.
Well, it's we played a lot of D&D at my house growing up, and I grew up in a very small house in Euclid, like you did.
Yep.
And needless to say, the total amount of distance between all like 7 of us jammed into my dining room, around a table that's half the size of this table, and my dad was like 10 feet.
Yeah.
My dad was like in the living room next door.
Okay. He heard every D&D game.
And so he would just listen to all of our D&D games, and then every so often he would just like chime in with the most like, just fucking kill the dragon and move on with it. Just like this from the peanut gallery.
I didn't know you were paying attention.
Yeah, exactly.
The last time we played at your house, it had been like maybe even a year or two, like because you'd moved out. I mean, I don't remember why we were at your house.
Yeah, maybe.
But we were like, oh, it'll be fun. But times we'll have a session at Derek's house around the night, and like your dad just had this like insane like I don't remember what it was now. It was just like he just went through this monologue and like talking about like the problems that we had, how we overcame them, and just like all this insight. Derek and I were like,
right, just because again, he'd been for years had just been
listening to
basically recap 15 years of play.
Basically recap 15 years.
But sweet.
But yes, so tonight is about RPGs and family, and especially people with kids. And for a lot of us, that are especially people who watch this channel, people are in their 30s, their 40s, their 50s, and they have kids. Maybe younger kids or maybe kids that are teenagers. And a lot of people, I see it. I've certainly seen it at Gen Con where, people are unfortunately your dad or mom is a nerd, and now you're cursed because you're going to be in the nerdy shit.
Now what are you going to play?
Right. And so
never throw a football, but you'll get a good job.
That's right. So unless of course you're really good at playing football. And I wanted to talk because recently, Smith, you have started a campaign. And it is a multi-generational campaign, which is so cool.
3 generations of Smiths at the table.
Right.
We'll have our
sweet.
6th session, I believe.
Right. So you're playing with your dad.
Sixth session.
Your dad's got you my favorite for sure by far.
And you're playing with your dad. You're playing with your wife, and you're playing with your 2 of your kids.
2 of them kids.
Right.
Yes.
And so I thought that alone is just really, really awesome and interesting. And even on a broader context, like you've run games for like family or near family people before, usually kind of maybe through you friends of you and your wives or friends of the family.
You ran the beginner box too for PF2 with your family, didn't you?
Yep.
Yeah. Lots of stuff.
Right. 5e stuff, beginner box stuff. Yeah. For the kids, for my wife or her friends. You know how it is, right? If you're a good DM, there's always someone who's like, "Hey, I've heard of that Dungeons and Dragons game. You play that, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, I've played it once or twice."
Don't look at my bookshelves.
Could you run us through that? Yeah, I could probably do that. Yeah.
Shout out RFC who's saying hi from Gamma, which is
that's right. He is there.
And one of the Night's Last Call's own patrons, Ben is there.
I was like, Ben is there. Yeah,
to helping run booths and running games for people. So welcome to RFC. Welcome to Ben. Looking forward to seeing you in a couple months, Stephen.
That's right.
Origins.
Yes, Origins.
So Smith's got his family dynasty, and then Bob, you've kind of become, as Smith was saying, you've become kind of the touring game master
for
family members and
young kids.
Young kids.
Yeah.
You've been playing with a lot of kids. And
Just
they're not all your
kids.
kids.
They are not. No, they're not all my kids. So yeah, lots of young kids games.
Right.
And it's been fun. And they could not handle probably 4E.
Well, that's one thing I definitely want to talk about is like the difference between, say, Smith's like Fremen like Sardaukar raised, in the fires of battle kids versus, Smith's like, at 3-year-olds, you should know your rotation. Like, how'd you miss that heal?
I've eased up a little bit over the years.
I thought when I was like, didn't I say like, I let my son like revive or heal, and someone was like, Smith would have killed that kid.
Depends on the game.
Yeah.
Right. And
I got stories about that. So
and so part of this is just stories from these guys about playing games with their families and some of my experiences with my family growing up and getting me into D&D. But also advice, I mean, I'm sure you guys have figured out some elements of what works, what doesn't work, how to sort of read the room when it comes to kids in particular, but family members.
I'm learning that one still.
And because like another thing that I've always, this is something I would assume none of you guys have had a problem with this, but we've heard stories where people are playing with a significant other or a family member, a brother, or, something, and they're like, this person's got to go, like
you're the worst one at the table, bro.
Yeah, you're not a good fit, but your family. So like, that gives you that extra burden of.
It's like my brother with his naming conventions. He like wants to make the most inappropriate dumb names, and I'm like, dude, like, you got to fix that.
Right.
Nobody should be named Bingus or something. Whatever he picks all the time.
I don't remember what his stupid name was.
Yeah, that's all he likes to do.
Yeah.
His favorite thing to do.
And so again, I think that'll be really interesting because again, for me, it's educational, but also we can talk about, what games and some of the advantages and the pros, because we know that there are some RPG games. Bob has a couple of them in front of him that are kind of more designed towards the younger kid. On the other hand, you've got Smith who's running full 4E for your 8-year-old?
Yes.
I don't mind that.
I know plenty of 30-year-olds who can handle 4th edition.
I might be one of them.
I definitely I got some stories there and some updates. So, but what they did want to quickly reinforce here, Derek mentioned earlier, but like I know that a lot of you guys in the community have had questions about this sort of thing. So make sure you post those questions, or better yet, like if you tip or Snapchat, we see that like in a separate thread. We can get to that even if we're in the middle of something. We can lose the chat easily, but we'll try to get to those questions. So throw them out there, and hopefully we have a good answer for you and can help because it's harder than your traditional getting together with the boys to play some D&D.
Well, would you and so we can kind of start off here, and again, I will mirror what Smith was saying, which is whenever we're in a conversation like this, we're all just talking with each other, and so it is kind of easy to lose the chat. So if you do have a question, and we're going to have our conversation regardless, but if you do have a question, feel free to throw it in a tip in a super chat, and we'll answer it right away. And with that in mind, by the way, we have two goals for.
I thought you said two super chats. I missed them.
So the first is that the chat. If we get if super chat gold, the chat gets to decide what the Thursday stream is going to be about.
Okay, very cool.
And then the tip goal is the frowny emoji face upcoming studio move out fund.
Oh gosh,
because of course our lease is coming to an end here.
It's in exile,
right? So, unfortunately, we've come to an end, but, there's always...
show's canceled, channel's canceled.
The future, is uncertain, but hopefully we'll figure some stuff out.
We'll still be filming.
Yes. Are you fans of the Fast and Furious movies? Family.
I am a fan. I have not seen all of those movies. I put them right up next to Twilight for me because they are so deliciously terrible.
Yeah.
I actually like that scene.
Yeah, it's a good scene.
Because I'm like...
Which scene?
The baseball scene.
The baseball scene in Twilight.
Oh, my God.
No, I like it because it's like,
fun.
I mean,
it's so
if you were vampires and you're in the middle of the wilderness.
It doesn't, nothing.
I don't like baseball, but if I did and I was a vampire in the northern wilderness, I'd be like, yeah, why not? That's kind of cool.
You crush that ball. I don't know. He's pretty fast. He can run that ball down in the next county.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of sweet.
Okay. But
of all the things you're going to dislike in that movie, that's the one you're going to dislike.
During a thunderstorm because otherwise it's too loud. No, the bat would explode if they're hitting it that hard.
The bat should have exploded. That's fair.
I think that's The Natural.
Yeah,
the movie The Natural.
So, anyways, so that kind
that's
of
right. Smith did write a Fast and Furious game.
That's right.
Oh, right.
That's right.
You
I
had
think
5
that was
stats.
legit.
It was like Fast, Furious, Family,
I can't remember. It was legit.
Fashion, I think, was one. I was for charisma.
I don't remember what it was.
It was a great.
There was 5 key
He wrote
stats.
it. Actually, like legit, kind of worked.
It kind of worked.
Dude, it did. It was legit.
Yeah, I wouldn't quite call it PbtA. It was actually more like kind of cipher inspired. I think that's the name of the system.
Sure.
You remember the one they had like Firefly,
Cortex.
That's it. Thank you. Yeah. Because it was like a mini dice pool where like you had your attribute and then you had like your skill, like driving, and then like depending on what you were doing, almost like L5R actually.
Yeah, right.
You would build your dice pool.
Actually, it's a lot like Dune 2D20 because in Dune 2D20, right? In 2D20, you take your skill and then you add it to your attribute. Well, in like a lot of games, it would be strength or dexterity.
Yeah.
But and with approaches from L5R, you get the how do you do something?
Right.
Dune has the why, and so it's like the other ability scores are like duty, faith, family, power. Right. So
I almost kind of like them better than L5R.
So it's more about, it's not how you're doing something, it's why you're doing it.
Yeah.
And so like if your character is very power driven, then you'll have a higher power stat, which means when you do something for power, you'll be able to have a better chance of succeeding.
Yeah.
And so
cool.
it's kind of like it's like why
are you doing this for family?
Yeah. Are you doing this for family? Are you doing this because you're furious?
Yeah.
That's so good.
So so
it's a 2-page. I don't know. Maybe I can make a PDF. We'll put it up one day.
That's right.
But there will be a studio move out fund, unfortunately. So where I want to start then, kind of where we were first going into this, this is something I've thought about. Would you guys say, because you mentioned about the playing with the kids and wanting it to be a good experience, and I can imagine in a world where I have kids, like I feel like there'd be a lot of pressure riding on me because I'm like, this is my opportunity to convert them into an RPGer for life, and if I fuck this up, right, they're gonna go play football, and I'm just gonna
100%.
and I'm gonna just be tilted for the rest of
never crossed my mind.
Right. So I would feel like,
am I gonna make someone cry today?
Ryan says, "Have y'all tried No Thank You Evil?" Bob, you want to flip
here
that
it is
up?
right here. Well, you can't. There you go.
Yes, the answer.
I have
is
tried
yes.
it.
So I'm just kind of curious. Do you feel like there is? Do you have an agenda? Are you trying to craft a legacy?
I don't know if I'd use the word agenda.
Yeah.
I would certainly have those anxieties, right? Like, don't fuck this up. But in terms of like forcing like my kids to do something, I mean, they're children. I can't get them to like go to bed on time,
Right, but I'm just thinking like I'm imagining if I was like really into sports,
It depends.
right,
on
and I wanted
age.
and I'm teaching my daughter how to play baseball, or softball or whatever, and I'm like, I really want this to go well because I really want her to be into sports like I was, and it was so cool for me, and it would be so fun for me as a parent to get to have that experience and share that experience with my kid. If you go and run some crap game of RPG and you go, yeah, no, Dad, I'm fine. I'll rather watch Bluey or whatever the hell it is the kids watch.
I don't know. I feel
I
like
know nothing about children.
Blue is a great show.
Blue is a great show.
But if I was running it for like my family, like adult family, like when my wife played, I was like, if I can get her hooked on this, it's gonna be like the best relationship ever. With my kids, I'm more like, can I get them to pay attention for the next 2 hours and be engaged? That's all I care about. Are they all into the story? Are they all rolling dice? That's almost all I care about. When I get a little older, I'm more like, do I have gamers that I want to play with every week?
Right, yeah, because now you're talking about like, all right,
how many people can I get on this channel that Derek hates?
Yeah. How can I hook people in, right?
I actually do have a hard answer on this, and that is actually no. My approach to parenting is, I want my kids to be safe. I want them to be happy. I want them to know that mom and dad are always there for them. And I was telling my oldest, my daughter, this the other day. I was just like, listen, I don't really care what you do. You don't have to be a doctor. You don't have to go to college. You don't have to be a lawyer. Hell, if you want, you could be a homeless person as long as it makes you happy, right? And that's the thing. Like, I want you to be safe. I want you to be happy. Live your life.
And you will be loved.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
That's what we instill.
So part of that is you have to let go, right? Because like, I think we've all heard the horror stories or seen people who grew up with like the parent who, I'm going to make my kid do this, blah, 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 blah. And that's not to say I don't make my kids do things, right? Like, I'm a very big believer because, I didn't have some of these opportunities when I was growing up. I'm a big believer in that, I would like my kids to, during the year have an extracurricular, one physical, one kind of like artistic, right?
Mhm.
And my rules with the kids are it can be whatever you want, that's available in the area, right? So
I want to be a bobsledder, Dad.
yeah, we gotta be
We're going to
able to do it, right?
Jamaica.
But like my kids do martial arts,
Yep.
right? But like for a while there, like Alex was doing, that's my daughter. She was doing dancing and martial arts, and it was a lot. And I was like, well, you can do these, or you can do something else, or you don't have to do all these things, right? And so it was interesting because I didn't actually expect this. She cut out like the dancing, but kept the martial arts, right?
And you got me onto that martial arts now. My son loves it.
Listen, fucking
Mr. J.
Mr. J is fucking awesome.
Mr. J is legit.
Mr. J don't fuck around.
I talk to that dude every time now before class. He's great.
Yeah, I love him. He's great.
Bob's like, I'm learning stuff.
But and it doesn't have to be martial arts, right? Like Alex recently, you were very excited about, right? Is getting into hockey, right? And if that's something she wants to like pursue, and she doesn't really have the interest or energy or time for martial arts, I'm 100% great with that, right? But
ironically, that is exactly what happened to me. I started doing Taekwondo as a martial art when I was like in second grade or something, however old you are in second grade. And I loved it, and I did it, and I got a black belt and everything like that. But then, you slow down. And then I got into hockey. And then I was kind of like, I can't do both.
Right.
Hockey practices are like 5 a.m. and stuff. It was pretty crazy. So I was like, and then I wanted to do the new thing, so I went to hockey.
But that being said, your kids then want to play with you in the TTRPG.
Yeah, so
they're like, actually,
that's how this campaign
Yeah.
started. Is my second Sebastian just kept hammering me, be like, Dad, where are we gonna play D&D? When are we gonna play D&D? I want to play D&D.
So he's his dad.
Yeah, but I grew up on
George
games
found the Fast and Furious.
Oh, he found it. Fast, Furious, Family, Fabulous, Focus.
Love it.
The classics.
I'm glad I got family in there. I was scared I didn't for some reason.
Yeah, no, it's in there. It's got to be in there.
Good. I've accomplished my mission. No. So he'd come to me, and we grew up on the Icewind Dale and Baldur's Gate series. So I was like, well, son, you have to gather your party first. Like, listen, yeah, I will DM for you, but you need to talk to your mother, your sister, like you need a party because I'm not going to do that heavy lifting for you. That's a player's responsibility, right?
Dang.
And he worked it, man.
Teaching them early.
I mean, he worked it, right? Because so my wife, I love her, right? She's phenomenal.
Mom,
but
if you love me, you play the cleric.
We need a healer.
We need a healer, Mom. You always make my booze go away. All right.
my wife and I have a ton in common, but she was always very resistant about D&D. Right. Because like that's always been something strong with like, who I am. Right. Like, we first started dating, it's like, yeah, honey, just going to get this out of the way right now. Fridays are a no-go. Right. And then when we got married, I was like, okay, listen, if the kid's got something going on or it's really important, you can break glass. We're married now. Boys will understand that. But try not to schedule on Fridays. Okay. And it's like, if I'm DMing the game, really try not to schedule because that's just a super dick move. Right. like we have some rules, but she respects that. Right. But she didn't play D&D like when we dated. She didn't play D&D for a very long time when we were married. Part of the reason was because of Derek. She was just like, oh yeah, no, I don't know why. She was just, I don't know if intimidated is the right word, but felt like that it was like you brought intensity to it. That was just too much.
Yeah, there might be some truth to that.
She needs to play this game.
It kind of scared her off.
She needs some Earth of Mayhem.
All right, so there you go. First tip of advice. If you've got that single crazy, weird, intense friend, keep them away. That'll make it easier to get your family in there.
Yeah, I mean, there's some truth to that, right?
You ain't wrong there.
You gotta hold it back a bit. Don't look too excited. Don't look too desperate.
Oh, I guess I could play some D&D, maybe.
Yeah. And she had a very legitimate concern, which was, she was scared how creative she was going to be on the spot, and that's very intimidating for people who don't like that, right?
I could see that.
She looked at D&D kind of like improv, which back then I was like, no, it's math. And nowadays, since then we've gotten 5th edition and all that stuff. I'm like, yeah, you're kind of not wrong. It's basically improv,
right.
Like
more and more every year,
and more every year, right? But so she was coming from this place of like, like not even just like going to be put on the spot, but like also just like I don't want to like let other people down because like I don't have like these crazy ideas that I hear about all the time, right? And it was just really kind kind of good information for when eventually, Sebastian did Connor into playing the game, right? And then what really made that game come together was my dad, who
he's awesome.
well, I mean, it's funny, right? Like, we're talking about getting into games. I'm a gamer because of my dad, right? Like, I remember I was like 3 years old. It's one of my first memories. I remember when we picked up our Nintendo and the first time I played Legend of Zelda, right? My dad shortly thereafter got Final Fantasy 1, and you guys know how I feel about the Final Fantasy series, right? So like, this was my childhood. This is where I grew up. When I went outside to play, like, I was pretending to be like Link, right? Like I would go on adventures, so my dad's a huge reason I am the way I am today. And, it was kind of funny because I got really into Final Fantasy 14, and there was a super kind of cringe, just terrible movie that I really liked. It was called Father of Light. And it was basically just a story of like a dad and a son growing up playing Final Fantasy 14. It was basically just
this wasn't a real movie.
It was a real movie.
Well,
it's more of like a commercial that's like 9 episodes, right? And I liked it. It was totally campy and corny, but then it got me thinking. I was just like, man, I could just do this, right? And like, because like, I'd been moved out for a while. I'm gonna have my own kids now, but like, my parents are like down the street, and I love my parents, and I had these good memories, right? Like watching my dad play Final Fantasy, or he'd be watching me. I remember telling Derek, Derek and I loved Final Fantasy 7.
Oh yeah, your dad's party was legendary.
It was legendary. Like, who takes Cat Sith into the final fight? My dad, right?
Well, not only did your dad have Kate Sith in his party, but he renamed him to Cat Shit.
Yeah. And talk about inappropriate names.
And one of my favorite things is that like, your dad hadn't gotten Omni Slash,
right?
And at the end, when you're fighting Sephiroth, apparently, I didn't know this. Yeah. You get your limit break, but apparently, if you don't have Omni Slash, because that last one is kind of scripted, it gives it to you. So he had never seen it before.
That was the first time he saw it. It was amazing. The other interesting part, Derek and I didn't know this either. Sephiroth has this attack which basically destroys the solar system. I forget the name of it now. It's been so long.
Final End or something like that. But it's like a 5-minute animation
where
Sephiroth summons a meteor, and it's like a full motion. And the meteor comes sailing in from the outer space and blowing up the planet.
Earth.
And it misses Earth, hits the sun. The sun goes maybe it's called supernova. Maybe. And then the sun explodes, and it wipes out Mercury, and it wipes out Venus, and then it cuts to the Earth, which is like shaking as the blast wave hits you. And of course, it doesn't even kill your character. Party. But every planet in the solar system and the sun apparently has been completely destroyed. And that's like his big ultimate attack right before you kill him. Well, turns out.
Yeah. My dad, Derek and I's parties were very optimized. I mean, Derek killed Sephiroth on a counterattack.
Correct.
Oh,
okay.
Beautiful.
So like, the fight was about to start, and Sephiroth goes, and Derek's Clow like counterattacks, quad slash, kill Sephiroth, right? My part was not quite that ridiculous, but it was still pretty good. No, my dad triggered that event like 4 or 5 times.
The fight went so long that Sephiroth summoned the meteor that destroyed the solar system multiple times.
But that's like, this is fucking it.
I didn't even know that was something that could happen. Oh, we did have a super chat from new patron Sail Away. Says, "Go Wings." It's funny. I grew up playing Detroit Red Wings. I grew up playing hockey, and I kind of liked Brett Hall, who used to play for the St. Louis Blues. But it's funny. I never really enjoyed watching hockey.
Professional?
At any level. I like playing it.
I needed that blue tracker thing that went around with the puck.
That actually made it worse for me.
No, know how I like my trackers.
Yeah. I will say this. Watching it in person is a much more enjoyable.
I like it in person
than watching on TV, because hockey's such a fast sport.
Yeah.
And the arena is actually relatively small, compared to like soccer.
Basketball, right?
Right, it's basketball size. But it moves so fast compared to basketball that being able to like see the entire ice at once, which you can really do when you're in person. And we have the monsters, but we never had an NHL team. So, anyways, so what about you, Bob? What
to say?
Yeah, what's your motivation? I mean, you've been running these. Like, are you offering to run these games for? Because you've got cousins and nephews, and your wife's got cousins and
there's a lot of kids.
Yeah, like second cousins and cousins. And so, are you offering? Are they asking?
No, they're not asking, but they when I start to run it, they get really into it. Like they get really like, oh yeah, yeah. And the first time I ran it for a group of the 4 boys, ages from like at the time it was probably like 4 to like 8, and I ran sort of like this. I ran Tiny Dungeon.
Right. This is Tiny
Taverns, but it's basically a 2d6 system, or it's called a Tiny D6 system. And basically you use 2d6, and all you need to do is get a 5 or a 6, and it's a success. So if you have disadvantage, you roll 1d6, and if you have advantage, you roll 3d6. Super easy. And there's like a free scenario you can run through, and I did it for the kids, and they loved it. Now, I don't know if they loved it because of the adventure or my mediocre GMing, or if it's because I had minis on the board. And I think kids, they love the toys. You know, I drew a water on the map. I had some trees up.
What's that?
I got stories about that too.
I let them they get to pick their characters. I brought a bunch of minis over, like how you have the big box, and they're like, oh, I'm this guy. And I'm like, sweet, I'm this girl. That's awesome. And then there was like, I remember they fought some wolves, and I did zones. So you're near, far, close, and that worked out very well for them, which I thought was going to be hard.
So you weren't using the grid,
nope.
Like the 5-foot
I just
grid.
said you move action, you can get closer, you can move, because one kid was like, I'm an archer, I want to stay back all the time and shoot, and they kind of got it. My son just wanted to, he's like me. I was running and hit the things. Okay, you just do that. I killed a wolf. Like, he was so pumped. And everything's like low hit points. You hit, it's like 1 damage. You use the little beads to mark how much damage you have. I use poker chips. You know, get rid of your poker chips. When you got 1 left or 0 left, you go down. Someone could try to heal you. They loved it. And moving the minis, and they did a skill challenge where they had to knock a tree over, and then they got over the lake. Or one kid tried to swim. He started going down river. They had to save him. They absolutely loved it. So I did that just on a whim, just because I knew I had to watch the 4 boys.
This was no prep?
No prep, because I had the adventure, like the free adventure that comes with Tiny Dungeon.
You weren't just improvising it.
Correct. Now, I had to, as you learn with kids, you got to improv a lot, but I had the structure in place, and so it worked out really well. And that was just because I knew that me and her brother had to watch the 4 kids that weekend. There was a baby shower wedding shower going on. All the women were at the wedding shower. And so I had all the boys with her brother. And so it's like, what are we going to do for a while? Well, I can run this thing, and they'll keep entertained for a few hours. And they were glued.
So that's basically about a complete opposite from your situation, which was this like carefully orchestrated coup to play. Now, one thing did come up to me. You were talking about the minis. You were talking about the thing and playing. And I know you said you have some mini stories. But, and Bob, I don't think you have played these growing up. No. Maybe, I don't think. But, growing up, we had board games like Hero Quest and Dragon.
I had it. I never played it.
Well, that's a damn shame.
I still have it in the original box.
So do you think that there is a fundamental difference between playing, and I'll just use D&D generically, but TTRPG, with your kids, playing that versus playing, a board game like Hero Quest?
So what's interesting is what started our family game was Thanksgiving. We try to like play a board game or whatever. And this year I brought over Hero Quest. And so we were all playing that. So my dad, my daughter, my kid, right? And that's what led to, Sebastian going, we should play D&D, right? And, that made it a real easy conversation with my dad, because he was like, oh man, Hero Quest was really cool, So like, then it was like, well, you want to take the next step.
Would you say that doing that kind of board game training wheels is a good idea?
If you really want to like specifically introduce kids to the hobby, 100%. Look, you guys know this. Hero Quest was written to basically be like, board game D&D.
Yeah, well, I think there was at the time, we didn't play it, but there was like Advanced Hero Quest, which was basically like the RPG version.
I guess there was also that dungeon board game that they keep remaking.
Yeah, but that's a dungeon board game is like kind of like Candyland.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not Candyland exactly.
It's like really board gamey.
It's very just like
Hero Quest has like the spirit of D&D.
Yeah. You've got the warrior who has more hit points but has just a sword, and then there's the elf who is kind of moves quicker and has a bow and a sword but has one set of spells. Yeah. And then there's the wizard who has all the spells but is very frail. Yeah. So you get and then a dwarf, I think.
The dwarf is actually more like the rogue. They deal with the traps.
The dwarf is the rogue. Yeah. So it's very much learning the tropes, and to be clear, that's how I started playing because like basically my experience.
Hero Quest first before D&D.
Yeah, back in the 80s, I like Aaron, I had started to really like the NES games, like Zelda and Final Fantasy, and I had started to read The Hobbit, and for whatever reason, for Christmas, I like that stuff. My parents got me Hero Quest. And I would play it with my sister and play with and then
Is that Milton Bradley?
Yeah, at the time, Milton Bradley. But it was done through an imprint through Games Workshop, which is why it's got like the Chaos Warrior, which was like kind of like the ultimate one of the is a Chaos Warrior.
Oh, that's
they're called Chaos Warriors.
But it was done through like Games Workshop. But
and in fact, Warhammer Quest was obviously deeply influenced by Hero Quest.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
And so I played that with my friends and my sister, and try to get my parents to play it a couple times. And there were a couple other board games that came out. Dark World was one of them. Dragon Strike came out much later. But and then I eventually got the D&D basic box set, and this was like a whole other thing. Because I remember opening up, there was no board.
Yeah, there was the minis.
Yeah.
They didn't. I mean, it had like the plastic or the cardboard cutout minis, but like the game was so much more like the character sheet was just blank.
Yeah.
And I remember being like really kind of like almost overwhelmed and intimidated. I didn't really quite know what to do with it. But apparently, like at that time, I was probably like 11 or something like that. The news had reached my uncle, my dad's youngest brother, that like Derek had gotten D&D, and so I
he's starting to ask some questions.
Yeah, and so like a government agent showing up. Yeah, like my uncle and my cousin, he was like 10 years older than me, or maybe even a little bit more. So my cousin was like 21, 22, and my dad's. My uncle was like 30 something. They basically show up and they're like, he is ready. And then they just took me and they took me out to to the Ashtabula County where they lived for their mega weekend long D&D games with 12 people and stuff like that. And then they were like, oh yeah, we play a first edition, second edition hybrid of AD&D, and I'm like, oh shit,
these guys are crazy.
I barely understood what was going on, but all I know is like
sounds like a D&D game.
Yeah, but I loved it. But that's a little bit older. I was like 10, 11.
Yeah.
So what's too young?
And my son was playing at 4.
Is that too young though?
He knows how to do math.
I mean, what's the floor here?
Every kid's different.
My opinion is they should be able to read.
What about the emotional maturity?
Look,
that absolutely is a factor.
That's actually something I wanted to bring up on this. One, I feel like the kids should be able to read. If not, you, the GM, are doing a lot of the telling. And I do that with my son because he can't read, but he does know how to do math, and he's very well at it. So things like Dragonbane, he's like, my athletics is 14 or whatever. I know I have to get on that. He knows how to roll dice, and he goes, he knows what D20 is. But I ran Dragonbane for the kids the second go around, not Tiny Taverns, because I figured this game is actually pretty easy. You got a character sheet, and then whether you can read or not. Now the other kids that I was with could read, and I knew I could just handhold my son. All you gotta do is
also you're not doing math in that game.
Correct.
You're doing a number comparison.
Yeah. And that's all. I'm like, jeez.
I'm sorry. You're not adding up.
You're not adding up, subtract.
And so the kids really grasped that very fast. They were like, oh, I hit with my sword. My sword's 14. I swing. I hit. Sweet. And it says D8. Perfect. Where I failed them, that was a 5-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 9-year-old. Where I failed them was the atmosphere. I didn't change anything.
Oh, shit.
And my wife kind of yelled at me afterwards because her cousin had said, yeah, he was a little spooked out about the dead bodies hanging from the tree. And I was like, yeah, I probably should have cut that part out. She's like, yeah, next time don't do that. I was like, that's what they rolled. It was the random event.
All right, you know what? You gotta admit, like,
he didn't fudge. So. Sounds like a good campaign to me. I don't know.
Quick shout out. We got Quick and Dirty Role Playing in the chat here, and and he is our newest patron.
Oh, sweet!
Welcome aboard.
So welcome aboard, Quick and Dirty Role Playing. He's been in and out of the streams and the comments for a while now. So
excellent.
It's awesome to see him join. Appreciate that. Sail Away says, lol, geez, at 4, I could barely figure out how to ride my big wheel.
Oh, they can't ride bikes, but they all can do math, and they all know what each dice is: D20, D8, D12.
I wonder,
they know.
I mean, do you think that these kids are more sophisticated than we were when we were their age in terms of their abilities and awareness? I mean, they
grow up with electronics. Like, they glued to them.
I mean,
but does that make them better?
I don't know.
Prepared for RPGs or worse?
It depends on how you define it, right?
Yeah.
Because in some ways better, in some ways worse, I would say, right? Like Alex was playing MMOs.
These graphics suck,
3 years old. Haven't gotten that one yet. But you know, you know, the comparison is going to be other games, right? You know, versus like going outside and, you know, playing make believe with their friends, right? No, kids don't go outside anymore, right? But
Nor apparently do they have friends.
This is also true.
I mean, we're joking, but like, there's a degree of
They call each other on their iPads.
you know.
Yeah, no, I mean, you know,
Yeah.
not friends the way that what I would think of.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, like I had my neighborhood crew
Yeah.
growing up.
I mean, we have a girl down the street, literally in less distance from my house to the school. This is a friend of my daughter's lives, and they'll call each other on the iPad. She could just go over there. Now they have dogs, so she's afraid of dogs, but they could literally just walk to each other's house. It's not a big deal.
Kaz says more and less they can operate an iPad, but they can't stay focused long enough to set up a simple game of Scythe. Which of course is a very complex board game.
Which is what my point was
Yeah.
is getting them to be engaged, and that was all I cared about. I'm like, I got 3 kids for 3 hours. How do I get them to be like really invested in this game and, you know, get in the roll dice and, oh, what are you going to do next? What are you going to do next? And really letting each kid have a spotlight. I think was my goal, and I think I accomplished it. Every kid afterwards, that was my nervousness, was I going to entertain them? They all told their parents, that game was awesome. I want to play again. I can't wait to play again. You know, we had our minis and we attacked those guys and killed that bat. You know, it was really cool. And I agree. I think any system that they can read or they can do the math on, I think Tiny Dungeon is an amazing game to start with really young kids. I think even Dragonbane is easy if you're okay with the maybe reading a little bit to them. No Thank You Evil is easy. It's kind of dumb.
All right.
Okay.
In other words, that's the game that's specifically made for kids.
It's kind of dumb. I ran it for my family, and I had 3 kids. 2 of them walked away, bored out of their minds, and the other kid was very confused what was going on.
You can't die in this game. There's no challenge. What are we even doing
it's just
here?
like some of the you have like your awesome score, and like it just I don't know.
I mean, isn't it designed a little bit like
It's goofy.
I think that is the one that's based on, I think it's from Money Cook Games. I think that
Yeah,
was
this is
based
Money
off of, Cypher. It's kind of like the Cypher system, I think, in a way. But
Like I was reading about Hero Kids, and that seems much more D&D related. I have never played it. That seems like much more like creative and like coming up with solutions and like what does your heroic character want to do? And it's like a little tiny page of abilities with like little trackers where you mark down the dice and the HP. This one like uses a totally different system with like awesomeness and your fast skill, and I don't know if maybe it was just me because maybe I couldn't relate to it and maybe I'm a bad GM for that, but I feel like my kids were just bored. And so they just didn't feel it at all. And so I was kind of like, I would just rather play D&D and just remove all the complex stuff and just play like a BX. And they would have way more fun. Because really we're just running an adventure. And I just need a system that is math easy, readable easy, that they can play with. And then have tokens
That's
for
what
health.
I was going to say.
Yeah.
When you're playing with kids, the system, I mean, I believe this in general. Like if you're playing with your friends, if you're playing for your kids, you're playing for your family, or, you know, and it's relevant to this stream's topic, right? If you're, you know, I've mentioned a couple times, I believe role-playing games are a great therapeutic tool, right? But I'm using that word specifically, tool.
Mm-hmm.
I look at game systems as like a tool. Like, what is the experience I'm trying to create here? And particularly with children, I find that the game system is more of a threat than a benefit, meaning the decisions I typically are looking at making involving which game system to play is more about making sure the system doesn't get in the way of what we're trying to do here.
It's a
right?
great point.
so what is that? So what are some of the red flags?
I'll give you an example.
Oh, sure.
Bob mentioned this earlier. We played the beginner's box. So I don't
Which one?
Pathfinder 2 beginner's box.
Okay, Pathfinder 2. Okay.
This was maybe like a year ago or whatever. And the beginner's box it's a great product. I very much like it. It's simple. It covers things really well, right? But you know, this is an example of like the system kind of got in the way of itself, right? They do a really good job of simplifying it, and what they did in beginner's box is what eventually a remaster would be, right? So like in the beginner's box, you don't have attribute scores, you just have your modifiers, right? They condense down a lot of like the other stuff into real simple things. But then we got to skill feats, right? Every character from their background gets a skill feat. And skill feats, you know, not only as you know, if you've watched this channel for a long time, or questionably not even worth writing down on your character sheet. And in fact, and almost every long running campaign I have seen, I even just participated in, just like Northern Reaches or whatever, characters after like 9th, 10th level stop taking skill feats.
I had 2 high level characters in your Pathfinder 2 campaign, one of which went to 20.
Right.
And I did not pick all my skill feats.
Right. So this is a general consensus, right? And you're playing it, and this isn't even just I have kids thing. This is just in general, right? You could be a 30-year-old adult, and I want to play Pathfinder 2, right? So you're going through all this stuff. You're like, okay, this makes sense. I got a class, right? I could do stuff. I have an ancestry, cool. Oh, I got this feat, cool. Did you get the skill feats? And it's like most of the feats are referencing things that don't even matter. They're not going to come up, and you're like, I don't even understand what this is doing and why this is good, right? And then like I said, they're skill feats, right? Like they might come up once or twice in a campaign, depending on the feat.
You're adding a lot of extra complexity,
Yes.
but it's by definition kind of a niche thing,
right? And the problem is you don't know that if you haven't played the game, right? So if you're truly new, you're reading all this and going, I assume all of this is important, right? I assume I need to know this. I need to know that. I need to know that. What's this skill feat do? How's that interact and how's that work? And it's not important and it doesn't matter. And it's a waste of space, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the example where, I went through that, saw that this was in here. It was a thing. Alex was just like, what does this do? How do I use this? And I was basically just like, you know what, guys, it doesn't matter. Just like scratch that off.
Yeah.
Scratch it off. Because, it doesn't matter. It's not going to meaningfully change your experience.
So by and large, then, you would say that a simpler game is better?
Yeah, I mean that's the reason I like Tiny Dungeon. It was so simple. Like everything I asked you to do was 2d6, and a d6 is such a simple dice. Almost everyone has one.
Right,
The kids are very easy about.
Candyland,
Oh, this one's you were really good at this. Grab another d6. Like, oh yeah, I'm like, oh, this one's a little tough. One less d6. Gets a little more complicated with something like where Dragonbane's level gets to. But man, like simple. Like keep it so simple.
So I would say
and use tokens.
It depends,
Right.
because simple games, like if you look at Basic,
Sure.
or a 5th edition game, they run the risk of being too undefined, and that could also be a problem because and kids will usually figure their way through it, but like adults, I've noticed, right, coming into it might not know what to do. Right?
Yeah.
I'm here to play a game. I don't know what I'm supposed to do because I can do anything, right?
Yeah.
And that's actually one reason why, it was a very interesting choice. I think for most people, I landed on 4th edition for our current family game. And a lot of people were like, really? and it was because, I kind of knew my group, right? And they all had like MMOs in common, and they all understood the team aspect of an MMO. They knew what a tank was. They knew what a healer was. They knew what damage was. They understood these concepts, right? And these roles obviously exist in any edition of D&D, but in 4th edition, they are clearly defined and they work, right? Like if you are playing a defender, your defender will defend. You cannot not defend as a defender, right? Like it's simple and it makes sense and it's very clear, right? Obviously, 4E has other complexities, which we'll get into, but I wanted to make sure that I got that part right because I want people to feel like that they're part of a team and that they can contribute in their role as part of the team, right? Because I think one of the problems you'll see with some players who play these games is they treat this game as a very selfish experience, right? They will treat it almost like a board game. And you'll see this all the time, right? Someone shows up, a character's pre-made, they got their background, they got their class all figured out, they haven't talked to anyone yet. We've talked about this on multiple streams, right? And that's a disservice to your group because these are team-based games. Like you need to, this is why session 0 exists. You need to talk, you need to discuss who's going to handle what, right? Because if you don't, if we're playing, Forbidden Lands and no one's got the ability to, survive and get food.
Well,
we're screwed.
We found out what happens when nobody had the ability to survive and get food.
I had all that. I just rolled like,
Your wits was terrible.
no, I had great survival.
Oh, did you have good wits though?
Yeah.
Oh, did you? Okay.
I just rolled like garbage.
Oh, you just rolled like garbage. Okay.
Absolute garbage.
Right. So you need to have those conversations, right?
Yeah.
And so I wanted to make sure I installed that very early on.
Now I wonder, is that like, I wonder if that's different because you guys are running a campaign.
Well,
And I'm running one shot.
This is our sixth session of our one shot because what I want to do,
like all good one shots,
what I want to do is really just like expose them to a lot of different things and kind of be like, hey, what did you like? What didn't you like? Right. And then talk about like what a big campaign was. Right. And I got a little like carrot for them too. Right. Because like, people get invested with what they're playing and whatnot. But I was just like, listen, when we do this for realsies, right? Like, I can't help myself. Like we'll go on the Hero Forge. Everyone's gonna get a custom little mini,
That's hot.
I'm gonna drop like $200, right, on just like getting everyone their sweet minis, right?
That's kind of hot.
But like, it'll be cool and they'll have fun. They'll get into it, right? And so like everyone kind of knows that this is just like them testing it out and feeling waters, which is helpful, right?
Yeah. John, by the way, says that the D&D board games are very much 4E inspired. Yeah. So
yes.
Wrath of Asherdalon,
we've played that.
Curse of Strahd, and Legend of Dritz are all basically 4E light.
Yep.
Super light.
Oh, that's cool.
And they're nicely packaged and put together. And I know you own those, or at least some of them.
I have the first one, the Wrath of Asherdalon, and I played that with the kids, and it was fun.
Yeah,
it was good.
So that is probably a good example of an indication. So speaking of, you're kind of getting to that point. When you play with anybody, there's this whole idea, right, of D&D. We one of our hot takes, or at least one of my hot takes on this channel is, I'm like, your goal shouldn't be it sounds worse than it is, but it's like your goal isn't to make other people have fun, right? My goal as a dungeon master is to present this experience, and then the players can have fun with that. But it's like, if I'm trying to like make it fun for them, it's like it conflicts with like the game's concepts. But that's so in general, though, a lot of people are like, this should be fun for everybody, and that's generally true. But with your kids, is the temptation to fudge to
I roll in front of the screen.
I roll in front of the screen. I just have to all of a sudden
just lie to them,
instill healing rules in Dragonbane that like don't exist, so that like
and
they don't all die.
Now here's the thing again.
I was waiting for tears. Tears were coming.
Right. I don't know kids. I don't want anybody. I don't want anybody crying at my game table.
It was not even that. It's like then I would hear from my wife, the mother of the other one kid, the mother of the other kid, probably going, I don't know what happened today.
Right.
But everyone is upset, and I'm dealing with it now. I'm like, sorry.
Right.
I killed them all.
Apparently, one of you got shot in the chest with an arrow. And
now you're all hanging from trees.
Right. Hanging from the trees. So, and then there's Smith over here. Now, granted, part of it is your kids, well, Sebastian and Alex at least, have experience playing video games like MMOs. I'm sure they've wiped. I'm sure they've gotten killed many times.
And keep in mind too, it's actually funny. I didn't get the chance to finish it, but get to the end. My dad plays Final Fantasy 14 and is like end capped, better gear than I have. Like, it would be awesome when I retire one day, right? Well, we'll leave it at that, right? Like he's great. So we not only have generational D&D games, we've had generational dungeon runs, right, which is great, and absolutely, it's a complete fuck fest, right? So they've experienced failure, but I got two stories here. We'll see if we have time. I have the story that has the crying, right, which we'll go back to, and we have this campaign, and the one thing I'll say about that is, you made a joke about no thank you evil, like, oh, I can't even die at this point, and I actually had that conversation with Alex because in our 4E game, I was like, hey guys, we're learning to play this. We're learning what we like, don't like. Your characters can't die. And Alex, very intuitive, is just like, well, if I can't die, then, what's the risk? Like why does any of this matter? And so I had to kind of mess with her a little bit and be like, oh, honey, there's so many worse things than death. Like, can you imagine what it'd feel like to be alive, but your skin was completely boiled away? What would that feel like? And she had this look of complete horror on her face. And I was like, you think about that, right? Because obviously the answer was, no, I got nothing. Like, we're just kind of fucking around here.
Bob's like, I got shit for the
There was a bat that drinks blood, and my wife was walking out of the room as I was like, and the bat is, if it attacks you, it will drink your blood and gain its own health points back. Kids are like, oh man, my daughters are like, oh my god. I'm like, I probably
we had a Sturge.
Oh boy,
incident. It was
You said a sturge.
A sturgeons, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, just sucking the blood out of someone, like, yeah.
So okay.
I mean, I don't.
You got to know your party.
Yeah.
Well, so you know, obviously nothing sexual, but I don't have that in like 99.99% of my games anyway.
Right.
You know, we had I think some prostitutes who were on strike. Right. Was the closest we got.
Yeah.
You know,
in terms of adult themes.
In terms of adult themes, I just
Well, so
Mine
as you
scary.
talk
It's
about,
never seemed
as you
relevant.
talk about as you talk about Restless Dead, right? And you talk about sturges sucking the blood and boiling skin off or whatever. You know, someone earlier in the chat had mentioned like a mouse ritter, which is a somewhat Pepper said it. It's a fairly popular game, at least in our Discord. It's like I think it's a hack of Knave or Into the Odd. But you're little mice.
Okay.
I actually got confused with Mouse Guard. I thought it was Mouse Guard, but like, no, it's not. I was like, oh.
No. And I think there's even supposed to be a Redwall RPG that's being made.
I think so.
So is there value to like making it cutesy?
My kids probably would like it.
And-
just because they're so young.
So I'm kind of an asshole.
You could still have a dragon.
Like imagine like
Just a D&D fat dragon.
You know, Roll for Combat, right? Just dropped Eldamon.
Yeah.
Right. And so, or, you know, another one that Ben always really likes is that Animon stories. But like if you wanted to go play Eldamon and just, you know, jam on with basically pocket monsters, you know, and be like, oh, it's so cute. And you pull out the plush, you know.
I think there is absolutely value with that. I'm kind of a horrible human being. I don't, when you were DMing last week, I don't know if you looked at my stand at all, but you might have seen some cutesy looking art.
I did not notice.
Okay. So I'm not doing anything too sophisticated here. I just, you know, mid-journey and making some art. But like one of the things I did, because again, MMOers, right? I made sure that any like significant creature in the dungeon had a name. And had its own index or its own initiative card, you know, and so they would know it, right? So there was this gelatinous cube, and it's so funny. It's so funny because, you know, my family obviously is D&D adjacent because they deal with me all the time. So just the amount, I was so impressed by the amount of like knowledge,
lore,
that they just absorb.
Well, it's funny.
Over time.
It's funny that you say that because Pepper just said, I think it gives kids an easy point of reference. They won't know what a beholder is, but they will know that a cat is dangerous to your mouse. But I think it's funny because you're like gelatinous cube, and I'm thinking, like, how the hell do your kids know what a gelatinous cube is?
It's not just my kids; they were all like. You know, my wife's funny, right? Because she like she tries to get into this. It's kind of like, oh, fine, I will appease my husband and my kids, and then she gets into it. Okay. You know, like she's one of those, right? And I was just like, okay, yeah, right. And so, like, my wife of all people, and then my dad kind of like carried on with it, right? Which got the kids scared. My wife started flipping out about like there could be a gelatinous cube around here, right? And the hilarious thing is I hadn't said anything, and there was totally a gelatinous cube in this dungeon, right? I was just like, wow, where's that coming from, right? You know, and so like her and my dad start talking about like, you know, oh yeah, gelatinous cubes are big, you can't see them, you know, you could just run into them, you know, and I was smashing. You know, and then like I think it was like my dad or someone brought up like a doppelganger. So like every session now when we start, Sebastian like kind of like looks around the table and it's just like, "Are you a doppelganger?" Right? Because like my dad brought it up and I was like, "Oh, let me tell you some stories about doppelgangers." You know, my buddy Rich, right? You know, and like, right? So we get into those stories.
He was a monster the whole time, and you never knew.
Right, and I'll see Sebastian like looking at the character sheet to see if it's got doppelganger stats on. I'm not. It's crazy, right? So like just the lore that these guys
sweet, actually.
have picked up. I was super impressed.
Well, I mean,
That's
and
super
I think
sweet.
That, you know that I mean, this is something to say about the joy of children in general, but but. You know, you can't go home again. You know, like there's that fun that comes with like. Remember when we didn't know what a doppelganger was, right? Or when you play with people,
what's a ghast?
What's a
Or
ghoul?
ghoul?
You know, yeah, that's one of my. I mean, that's
First
one of my.
time figuring out.
That's one of my favorite.
And Etten. We didn't know what Etten was.
But the ghoul was so good because everybody who's ever played D&D is watching you guys examine this murder scene, and there's like claw marks and bite marks, and I'm like examining like the way that she was killed. It seems like she wasn't moving, almost as if she was paralyzed before she was killed. And you're like, oh, and you're like, there's a rotting stench. And like every D&D
this
player,
is why Pathfinder leaves notes at the end of the adventure.
right. But like, but anybody who's been playing the game for a long time, there is no like mystery. You go, oh, it's ghouls.
Actually, this is a great point.
Oh, it's probably that guy. Yeah. You know, like
I wanted to.
Case in point. I mean, spoiler alert. When we played Rise of the Rune Lords. And we got through the misgivings, which spoiler alert for Rise of the Rune Lords was 20 years old, but you guys got to the misgivings and you're like, oh, well, this is very clearly a haunted house. Let's burn this thing down.
Yeah. We didn't even fuck
Whereas
with
you
that.
guys were like, let's go down the well.
We were like, I think that manticore could be real.
There ain't no way we're going in that, Derek. You are fucking kidding
Right.
yourself.
So like a kid, so a kid would be like, it's going to be like you said, like just freaking out and having these like, oh my God, a doppelganger.
Yeah.
Oh no. Like that's fun.
It's amazing.
That's fun.
Actually, I would say if you are a bitter, jaded vet, you've been playing these games for a very long time, and you ever find yourself like kind of not having fun, like go run a game for kids and put yourself in a good mindset for it. Don't do it as an asshole, right? But like go run a game, because the way new players and kids explore the world, like remember, like look through their eyes and remember what that was like, because it brings back so much of that joy and so much of like that wonder, and it really just puts things in perspective, and obviously I'm guilty of this, as much as anyone here, but like the amount of time we spend arguing and bullshitting on the Discord about fucking what rule is best, what mechanic is best, and all. Man, I'm telling you, none of that shit matters.
Mhm.
It's not the fucking point of the game. It's not what's important. And when you play with new players and particularly children who are into it, it's such a humbling and awesome experience, because like it kind of reboots you in a way, and you're just like, oh wow, like this game is about fun. It's about exploration. It's about just like seeing what's out there, and get into a little bit of trouble, managed mischief, right? And it changes everything versus like, okay, it's a dungeon. All right, well, let's go get our, we could probably do 4 encounters tonight and get our appropriate level loot. And we'll be in good shape next week to do the next level appropriate dungeon.
Coming down from the ceiling, a strange creature. It's a Drider.
Yep.
It's got fireball twice a day.
Yep.
It's got
I
poison.
couldn't have said that better. Actually, I think that was a great message. I think that was beautiful.
That's kind of like the what they kind of wanted to.
Yeah, no, that was
That was
great.
my goal for the stream, was get that out there.
Speaking of Driders, remember
Someone clip that, please.
Yeah, clip. That was great, actually. I never knew what a Drider was.
Right.
And we had found one in PF2, and I was like, that thing is sweet.
I love Driders.
I'm like, it's like a spider.
I was happy that PF2 still made
Oh,
Driders
yeah.
cool.
PF2 did Driders right.
I was like, good
I'm
job.
like, this
good
thing's
job.
casting
They make
fireballs?
them a flesh warp, so they're not the same like drow plus
Sure.
spider body that they used to have, because they're a little bit more like twisted and warped,
Yeah.
which is fine. I mean, they are supposed to be a messed up creature.
Oh yeah, they're sweet.
But that's part of the fun of the game, right? Is discovering it.
Well,
Now,
so my brother definitely does not know what a Drider is,
Right.
right? But now I do, and now we're playing Baldur's Gate 3, and you finally get to Act 2, and all of a sudden this Drider comes out with this little haunted lamp, and this thing is creepy. It's actually really done well. It's super creepy. I'm like, oh shit, that's a Drider. And my brother's like, what? I'm like,
Yeah, you
I
know
know
you're
that
in
thing. That thing cast a fireball at us.
and did it cast a fireball?
No,
at
no,
you?
it guides you.
Oh, okay.
Complaints, get into the light, get closer to the light the whole time. It's kind of annoying, but it was sweet just because I felt that, and my brother didn't know, and I did know. I was like, this is kind of cool.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
And he was hyped up. And I'm like, all these things he doesn't even know they can cast fireball. They're so cool.
Right. I mean, I've talked about this before on the stream about how one of the things that I think was part of D&D was that sort of hidden lore of the game, of learning this thing through osmosis, through exposure, and it's like, they don't know about, oh, you don't know what a rust monster is? Oh, you're going to learn today. You're going to learn today.
Well, and like I never tell them like the names of things. Right, they have to figure it out. They have to make.
So you just say
knowledge
you're
check.
fighting a monster.
I will describe it, right? Like the first time I came across the kobold, it was like a short reptilian creature, and I never referenced the name. Alex was calling it a goblin, and like eventually my dad was just like, "What are you?" Right? I love my dad. He's just so like the fuck are you? I'm a kobold, and like it was funny because like Alex and Sebastian are both like, kobold, of course, like.
When Derek said it was an Etna, I was like, damn it, I should have known that.
You should have known
I
that.
should have known that.
Sean, by the way, our good buddy Sean says, I killed that Drider.
Wow. Okay.
And Quick and Dirty says, I convinced the Drider to give me the lamp.
I failed that check.
The fairies is still stuck in the lamp, cussing me out along the way.
Hilarious.
That's great. Yeah, there's so many Baldur's Gate. I wanted to say one thing back at the point we were just talking about was about the mood and setting. And obviously, I think you need to know your group. Younger kids probably keep it lighter. Older kids, maybe they can handle a little more. What I noticed when I ran it for the 5, the 7, and the 9-year-old was that some of them were getting a little creeped out. and I was like, oh, I don't know.
Which game were you playing?
We were playing technically Dragonbane at the time, but like a very light version of even Dragonbane. But they just were getting this creepy feeling, and I was doing this on purpose. I was like, I want to give you something that is a little scary, and I want you to overcome this. You know, to you guys are heroes. You know, you're the duck. You know, the mallard. Like you're a big, badass. So I know.
Wait, hold on.
We're
We're
playing
talking
the
about
same
that?
The mallard knight is super sweet.
Got it. The duck race. Okay.
Yeah, the duck race. Yeah.
I thought this was like I don't know, like a Wycliffe saying or something.
No.
Yeah, man, you're the duck.
You're the. You understand? But what I remember, there was a point where a couple of players were like, "I just want to go back to town. Like I don't. I think I'm gonna. I don't want to go out there. I'm scared. I don't want to go out there." And I said, "Remember, you might be scared. You, Smith, might be scared, but your character is a hero. He is brave."
And then your player who's too smart goes, actually, I have the scared condition marked.
I'm frightened.
I'm actually frightened.
So
That
I
can
was.
happen in Dragon Ball.
That is true. But I was trying to instill in them that, like, remember, we are playing a game where you are a character that is brave and they can overcome these amazing obstacles. Maybe you are afraid, but your character might not be. And then this is your chance to, like my daughter who's afraid of dogs, like maybe in a game she could not be afraid of dogs and she could be like, this is kind of fun. I have a pet, And I'm like, that is a really cool thing that like an RPG tabletop role playing game can give to someone. But you got to also remember that to the kids because they don't always think that way.
Yeah.
Well, I will say everyone's different.
Yeah.
Not just kids, everyone's different, right? Like my kids, they love playing horror games. So they love playing like the back rooms. I don't know if you guys know what these are, but like,
Is that the one where like it's like an office room?
Yeah,
and you can't find
like,
your way out.
Like monsters will like
Yeah,
chase.
I've seen clips of that.
They're obsessed with that. They love SCP. You guys know what SCP is. Kaz in chat knows what SCP is. So SCP is like it started off as just this collection of like really, just not even horror, but like just weird kind of like government experiments with the paranormal. Right?
Okay.
So just weird things that are out there. And their whole job is secure, contain, and protect.
I only know that because Kat's put it in chat.
Yeah. There you go. Right. And so like it started off as all these like really cool stories that you would just go and read, and they were written like they were real. Right. And it's turned into a whole thing. And my kids love that. They play, I don't know anything about this one. 5 Days at Freddy's.
Friday Night Freddy's.
Something like that. It's like the
Five
stuff
Nights at Freddy's.
Five Nights at Freddy's.
I
Yeah.
don't know.
So like they love creepy things already.
Yeah, it's FNAF, FNAF or something.
So for them, like a lot of this stuff is just like candy to them, right? So
My kids get scared like on like a tiny show.
well, I
like
think everyone's different.
Dora.
Yeah.
I don't know if they could handle a game like that.
Well, and I think so Chris in chat is sort of sharing a story about playing a game with who was his girlfriend, now wife, and it had some rocky bumps along the way, and then eventually she wasn't really into the hobby so much, but it was kind of part of the package deal, and it sounds like the GM of that group basically eventually kind of asked her to leave. And then that's created a lot of problems. And I will say that I think that it's not always sunshine and rainbows. I haven't played with
100%.
kids, but I have played with the girlfriend in the group. And we've actually had several partners in the group, including my own girlfriend, but someone else's girlfriend as well. And it didn't always, for me, create the best experience because there's this inherent understanding that's like, if you have a bad time, I'm going to have a bad time,
I also get this weird like
Now, granted, that wasn't the healthiest relationship. So, I mean,
I haven't played role-playing games with my significant other, but I have played sports, and I don't know why. I assume it's just because we're married, but I feel like I can say things that I shouldn't say to the person I'm playing with. Like if I was just playing with you and we were playing volleyball, and you like had a horrible play, I'm like, dang, hey, you could do better next time. Wife, I'm like, that was fucking awful. That's terrible. You gotta step it up. And then we're all pissed at each other at the end of the night. I'm like, why do I feel like I have even the right to say that? So we don't play with each other anymore. Like she goes her bocce team, and I'll play on other people's teams. Yeah, stay away.
So your situation is you're too honest and too open.
Well, I feel like I can say it for whatever reason. I don't know why, probably because we're married, but I assume I can, and I'm like, I probably shouldn't be that way.
I think any group suffers when you have this ulterior motive for being there. And
Yes.
I've never quite understood that motive, to be honest with you. You know, it's hard to understand something or explain something if you don't understand it. But like, there's so many times where I see people and I go, it really does not seem like you want to be here. And yet you insist on being here.
Well,
and wouldn't you rather be doing, I don't know,
it's
anything else?
It's two people, right? That's the thing you gotta remember, right? It's someone going, hey, I love this hobby. I love you. I would like to share this with you. Tell me what you think, right?
Right. Which, by the way, that was, you know, granted, I was in my 20s, so, you know, take it for what it was worth. But, you know, at the time, my philosophy was, you know, for me, no girlfriend allowed. Like, in fact, it got to the point where I was like, I don't want a girlfriend who shares my hobbies because I got annoyed, right? Because I was into, you know, when I dated Christine and, you know, she got into D&D and then World of Warcraft, annoying. Then I dated Michelle. I got her into board games and she annoying, you know? I was like, no, I want this to be mine. And I don't want you to
can't have it.
And I don't want you to ruin it for me. You know?
Well, that was the second I was going to get to is
Gabriel's is goddamn Gary.
you know, the other person.
Sorry.
And this is just, you know, youth or bad communication or whatever, right? Like the other person goes, okay, I'm going to try this. And maybe they don't really get it or they don't get into it. But now they feel like, well, I got to do this because this is the thing that we're doing. If I say this fucking sucks, then, you know, my significant other is going to be really disappointed because they really care about this, right? And so, like, you know, for example, I mentioned before, my wife wasn't really into it, and, you know, it was good. It started a healthy relationship because she was just like, yeah, no, I'm never going to fucking play that game, right? And I was like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right.
And I guess what it comes down to is, you know, and we did get a super chat from Sean. What do we got here from Sean, Bob?
It says, looking forward to remembering this stream in 7+ years now that I have a nephew on the way.
right.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta work that in.
Playing that campaign now.
You gotta start playing that campaign now, Sean. Think about how many game systems you'll have under your belt by then.
Oh, and
like,
Sean buys like every game system every time I see him.
Sean and Ryan are two big.
But I see
big
Sean do it in person because when he comes to Origin, he's got like 6 or 7 books every time I see him.
Stack, you know?
Yeah.
And I think, but you know what I'm thinking about, especially when I think about the broader concept of family, which is if the person comes to the game with an open heart and an open mind to experience it and play it because they're genuinely curious. But if they do it because it feels like it's an obligation.
Yeah, it's bad. Anything like that's bad. Like short of like actual obligations.
You're right.
Where it's like, okay, no one wants to go to a child's Christmas concert. But you know what? I get it. I'm going to say it. We don't.
Look,
but we're going to fucking
do it. I
do
only care for the 5 minutes my kid's singing. And then I have to sit there for half an hour.
Even then,
do you really care then?
Yeah. I actually like to hear them sing.
Is your kid good at singing?
No.
Well, then you shouldn't be.
Right. No, I'm like, look at him go.
I'm like, this is
Why isn't he
embarrassing.
singing? Why is he just dancing?
That's even worse. Now I'm even more tilted.
Right.
Then I had to sit for the half an
You're
hour
like, wait
of
a
the
second.
rest of it.
How much money did I pay for this?
0.
This
That
just
stuff's
reminds me
free.
of that,
you know what this
that
is?
Family Guy skit, where Stewie draws on the paper and Lois and Peter are like, oh, this is so good. We're going to hang it on the fridge. And Stewie's like, yay. And he walks to the other room. And then like Peter and Lois like, oh, this is terrible. This is the worst we've ever seen. Oh, man, I almost lost it when you said we're going to hang it on the fridge. Ha, I know. Let's spit on it.
And Stewie's in the other room, like, listening.
He's listening. He just starts crying.
I
Oh my
remember
God, such a good skit.
I think it was my very first martial arts tournament, Taekwondo tournament. And I used to go to states and nationals and stuff. And but this was like my first one. I think it was in Dayton. And so my dad took me. And I don't remember what happened, but like I think I maybe won the first round or something like that. But it was like the second round or something like that. And long story short, I basically kind of like came to in the car on the way home.
Oh, shit.
And I had gotten knocked out.
Oh.
Like, you know, out. But it was like an illegal kick to the head.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think I remember the story.
So that person got disqualified.
You actually won.
So
I was
I
like,
actually won.
Are you talking about Karate Kid?
Yeah. So my dad was like, basically like, you know, like, you sucked, but at least you won, you know? Like
Every time to a soccer game, my dad would sit up. Lost Nation used to have indoor courts.
Yeah.
And so there was a second floor, and you could watch over the soccer game, indoor soccer. And after every game, he would come in and tell me what he thought. And he would just be like, why were you so slow? Why were you so slow? It's
So,
like you're running in
admittedly-
slow motion. Man, I must be so slow.
Unless I'm on stream.
But I liked him watching.
I keep my thoughts to myself, right? And I don't give Alex advice on hockey, most because I don't know anything about hockey. But also, like at the end of the game, I just go, "Do you have fun?"
Right.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, and also she's at the age, kind of like with D&D, right, where it's like the skills and the the maturity will come, and you'll start to learn and practice at that point. You're mostly just at this point, engaging. I mean, unless you're like one of those people who like your kids in elite camps from the age of 7.
All the traveling leagues.
Yeah, like
I think if your kid's good at that, great. I think parents put too much of their kids in general.
yeah, I've always, again, I'm not a parent, but I've always, I have a couple of friends who, well, more like people I used to know that are friends, and I see their kids, and from a very young age, it's like, oh, their kid was in some elite baseball school and working with private coaches, and I go, and they, I know these people, these are good people, but I'm like, but who's driving that really?
Yep, right.
And it always makes me think of this Saturday Night Live. The old Saturday Night Live, 90s Saturday Night Live with Tim Meadows and Tracy Morgan. And Tim Meadows is playing like Tiger Woods. And the skit is that it's like Tiger Woods being interviewed, and it's his dad, Earl Woods, which is Tracy Morgan. And, Tracy Morgan is his Tiger Woods. His dad is like, ever since he was born, all he wanted to do is swing that club. And then it like cuts to, Tiger Woods. And he's like, my first memory is my father duct taping a golf club to my hand,
Yep.
I have not seen that one.
Yeah, and so it's just like,
pretty good.
it's just so great, but like, yeah, so
That's why I think it's so cool that your kids like
Well,
are
that's what
asking for
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
My kids aren't asking. I mean, my son keeps asking about Dragon Bane because he wants to like kill some more creatures. But like when I get the group of kids together, they're kind of like, is Bob gonna run another game? That was really fun. But they're not like harping for it. But I'm also not running a campaign, and they live in a bunch of different places, so it's harder for me.
It's funny too, because like I do value my time, and we're playing on the weekends,
Yeah.
right? And like Alex will have hockey practice or whatever, or they'll have like rough week at school, and so like their kids are tired, right? And and it's funny because they'll come down, they'll be a little like this in their chairs, and then I'll just be like, we don't have to play, Like, we don't have to play.
Yeah.
You can have your Saturday back. I'll take my Saturday back. Like, you're not here against your will.
Yeah.
right. Like
You're asking me to do this, right? And like,
I mean, that's an important lesson to learn
Yeah.
early on.
well, it's funny too, because I'll say that, and I'm not unkindly,
Yeah.
not passive aggressively, just like, we don't have to do this.
Yeah.
If you're tired, you're tired. It's fine. We can play next week. It's fine. And they'll be like, I'm good, Dad. I'm ready. I'm like, okay.
And I bet while they're playing too, they're like really engaged. I mean, that's what I've noticed.
Yes and no.
Oh, really?
Really?
And this is about the system getting away, right?
Oh, okay.
Oh.
4E, right? Something so I mentioned before, I picked 4E because
By the way, George had said earlier in chat, he said it always becomes a 4E stream. That was
Let me tell you about this.
I'm going to rock the boat a little bit, actually.
oh, you heard it here, folks.
So I mentioned all the reasons I picked 4E, and by the way, like that was very successful on the Discord. I posted like kind of like the first session, and we had that fight, and it was awesome seeing everyone play their role and crushing this fight, and then afterwards looking around at each other, going, "Oh man, we did that!
Yeah,
we did that, right?" So I do want to put a big like green check on mission accomplished. That did the job, right? But what I wasn't really expecting, and part of this was I mentioned before, like my wife, mentioned like, don't want to do the creative stuff like that, right? Everyone got super into the exploration phase, right? Now, this is less unexpected with kids because they want to touch and poke everything, but like my dad and eventually my wife got into everything. Like I mentioned that one stream. I was like, oh yeah, they missed some secret doors, right?
Oh, great.
My dad, like when we showed up to play the next session, I'm sitting down, I'm like getting my notes. I'm like, all right, what the hell am I doing?
I knew this was going.
My dad like sits down, looks at the party, and he's just like, listen, I watched the stream and we missed some things.
I did my research.
We missed some things. So
I watched the film.
Yeah.
we need to go back and we need to find everything. And my wife's kind of just like that, and like the kids are like, oh, okay, like whatever, what did we miss? And my dad's like, I don't know, but we missed it. So we need to get it.
That's funny.
So like they love like messing with things, talking to the NPCs. That was a huge thing for them, right? Like my dad, coming from an MMO, right, was just like, oh, it's not a player, I should kill it, right? And so the idea that you could talk to an NPC and you could threaten it and you could get what you want and you don't have to,
Right, like really highlighting the difference between a video game and an actual GM who can
resonated so well. Simple things like a stuck door because of the moisture, right? Like they're in a they're trapped in a sewer right now, and they have so much fun with that, and they love playing it. Even my wife kind of got into it, like started thinking about her abilities and stuff like that. Now, and then we get into the combat, and it's 4E combat, and they very much like 4E combat when it's their turn.
Oh,
yes.
Meaning they don't like waiting for the turn.
Right.
Got it.
Right. Which, if you've played 4E or Pathfinder 2, makes 100% sense, right?
I mean, to be fair, you're going to wait for your turn in pretty much any cyclical
just the
initiative
amount of
system.
time it changes.
Yeah.
But-
with a game like 4E or Pathfinder 2, though, there's always inherent reading. We're playing roughly every week. Sometimes we miss a week because it's just schedules, and it's a lot to come back to and go, all right, what does this power do again? What is it? How? Okay, there's always that thing,
Right.
and they're not. I'll gently try to remind them because I don't want to like add pressure to anything, but like they're not at that point yet where they're thinking about their turn when it's not their turn.
Yeah.
Well,
Right.
to be fair, that is an advanced skill that not many people
What is
ever
that?
master. They're just like, I was completely not paying attention to anything that was going on in the game until this very moment. It's pretty common.
Yeah.
I mean, we talk about this just with not just kids, but with anybody, right? Which is the dividing line between a game being interesting and having longevity, right? So it's like, hey, there's a lot of stuff here in this game. It's like, yeah, and it'll really keep it interesting for a long time. Yeah, but it can get cumbersome. You pay the price you with the complexity.
Yeah.
And and I think one of the downsides potentially with kids, but is that complexity can overwhelm them. But at the same time, this is me like very selfishly. It's like, well, yeah, but that's why we're playing an RPG and not just playing Candyland or playing Hero Quest.
Which reminds me of another point. Like this came up, and again, maybe it's just because part of it's one of us my kid, and two, maybe it's just kids these days. But this idea that they had to win, and what it was winning, So I remember the one mother had asked the son, "Did you play with PbtA? It was a couple hours. You had fun." He goes, "Yeah, it was awesome." She goes, "Did you win?" And he was like, "We didn't win." And she was like, "Oh, really?" And I was like, "Well, they did win."
But did they wipe?
But no, and I was like, but they didn't get all the pieces because we didn't play this long campaign. I just played like a one shot.
Yeah.
And so he's like, yeah, so we sort of won. And I was like, man, I guess that's how I am. Like,
yes.
yeah, I'm like, but
it is how you are.
But it's like, you don't think about it. It's like, man, he did not care about anything else. And I know my son's like this. Like, did we win? Did we beat all the people we're supposed to beat? And we came back victorious. That's a win, I guess. I don't know what a win was to him, but I was like, man, I guess that was an opportunity for me to teach them maybe something a little different.
So
that's a teaching moment.
That would be the ultimate risk with me and children and playing a game. Is like I would want, like I'd be looking for the moment to put it, the mouse guard.
Oh yeah, 100%,
do you save your drowning?
That would traumatize.
Do you save your drowning brother or do you save the town full of people? You have to pick. Yeah. Who's dying? Would you save your sister?
I've done that to kids and they do not like
No,
it.
of course not. But I'm like,
that's the crying story I have.
Right, yeah, I'm like, show me who you are.
Like my kids they'll break under that. They'll be like, I want both. I'm like, well, you can't both. You have to pick one or the other. Then I don't know what to.
All right, so crying story time.
Yeah. So we played a 5e game for a good chunk of sessions, and this was my wife, this was Alex, and this was Sebastian. They were a little bit younger. And this one I had the full setup. So I had the TV with the cool scenes. I had the accents on. I did the whole thing, right? And so they loved the minis and stuff. The 4E game is just tactiles.
Oh, okay.
Right. I wanted to go back to hey, use your head, and I only use it for combat, which has already led to like I start drawing, like my wife going, "Oh, it's gonna be a fight,"
Right.
I'm like, damn it,
yeah, you can't.
You metagamers, Anyways, so we were playing this, and I can't tell a story without telling a little bit about my son, because Bob, you would be so proud of him, and I'm so proud of him. He was playing a dwarf barbarian, and me playing with him helped me to play with you, because like he would just run in every room, just like attack the biggest thing there. I mean, it was just like my wife was playing
Sounds like my hero.
a cleric, and basically spent all the sessions just chasing him, trying to keep him alive, right? You know, Alex was playing a ranger, and because they were little, you know, there was only 3 of them, I gave her like a pet wolf, because of course, you know, girls always pick druids and rangers and want a pet wolf, right?
They love the wolves.
They love the wolves,
I know.
right? So that's cool. So, you know, we're going through a dungeon. It's your typical dungeon
Growing up,
experience.
it was like my sister and all of her friends, they liked horses and unicorns, but now apparently it's wolves.
Wolves are where it's at.
All right.
So
I feel like my daughter would be all about a unicorn if she could get one.
you know, one of my favorite Sebastian stories in here is he's this dwarf, and there's this room, and in the middle of the room is a pedestal, and on the pedestal there's a chest, and there's some light coming in through the ceiling. And my wife goes, "Oh, that's a trap," right? She's right. Sebastian doesn't care. Immediately runs right in, opens the chest, right? And I'm like, all right, you get hit with, you know, a needle pops out, right? And he's like, oh, and it's like, there's some liquid on it, and it goes in your skin. He's like, huh. All right, I take the needle out, and I lick it. What is it? And I was like, you're a dwarf, definitely poison. He's like, oh, am I dead? I was like, nah, you're a dwarf, you're fine. So like, you know, he's like, perfect. He throws it away.
Right. He's like, that's what I thought. All right. I knew what I was doing.
I couldn't resist. I couldn't help myself because he was a dwarf, right?
Oh, that's great.
If Alex is dead, you're an elf. You're dead. And you don't come back. You're gone. At some point, I don't remember where, like he found an axe. You know, I put broken loot in my one shots just to get people excited about it, right? You know, and he found it was like, I don't know.
We can't help ourselves.
We can't help ourselves. That's a whole other conversation we'll have on here one day.
Smith and I, you know, a lot of people
we're having our midlife crisis.
Yeah, well, every other week. Smith said something. Someone asked me a thing on Discord the other day. I was talking, and someone was like, "Damn, Derek." They're like, They're like, "What did you do before the Discord?" And someone goes, "I think this was just him and Smith."
No,
Yes.
I can agree to that.
All we're doing is now we're hitting play.
I woke up today with 700 missed messages between the two of them just talking about RPGs last night when I was sleeping.
Right, not in the Discord.
Not about
This is just them
channel,
talking.
not business.
This is just
that's what they do, guys. That's what they do
all the time.
Anyways, so it's funny because it's like, you know, it's like, that's what we would do.
No,
Anyway.
as many as I'm telling the story, I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I fucked everything up.
Right.
Yeah. Anyways, we'll talk about that some other time. You know, at some point he gets like a +2 like great axe, right? And you know he names it Bingo. And I was like, that's fun.
Isn't that a great name?
It's such a great name.
Isn't that a great name for a kid to name their big magical
Sounds like
axe?
something my brother would name.
Yeah, absolutely,
Absolutely.
But I love your brother.
I love it. Yeah, it was great. It was great, right? So, anyways, they open some doors they're not supposed to, find a secret door they're not supposed to, and they go in there. And naturally, there's a monster they're not supposed to fight, so they fight it. And it's a Minotaur skeleton, right? It's like CR4.
Sweet.
Yeah, it's awesome, right? And it was this big brood. I'm describing,
This was
you know,
5e?
5e.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm describing like, you know, this fight or whatever like that, and like, you know, he's got reach, and he goes after my wife and just like boom, just clips her, like she's just taken out, right?
Jeez.
And you know, kids just saw fucking mommy get killed. I mean, she's not dead, but she's bleeding out, right? And you know, Sebastian's like, "Oh, mommy!" He starts getting tears. He's like, "I'm scared. This guy's scared. I don't want to fight." And I did the Derek thing, right? Which maybe wasn't the best call of my life. So don't take this as parenting advice, right? And I was just like, I mean, what are you gonna do, Sebastian? Like this creature is here. You know, mommy's. I didn't even use her character name, which is actually a big breach for me because usually I even in my game, like I don't call my dad. You know, I call him like Zinc. That's his character's name, right? I keep that contract. I broke the contract here, so
I can see where this is going.
So I'm going to D&D hell, but I was just like, mommy's down. She's bleeding. You know.
Oh gosh.
Are you going to run away and let her die, or are you going to stand and fight? You know, and he's got tears coming out. He's like,
gosh.
I stand and fight, you know. And of course, that's when he crits, and then there's cheering, and the skeleton's destroyed, and Alex had a cure potion, and mommy gets back up, and it's all great, right? So, you know, and then, you know, afterwards, I didn't get yelled at, right? You know,
That's because everyone lived.
my wife came up to me, and she's like, "You're fucking lucky he crit."
Yeah, 100% correct.
And I like, that was it. That was all we said. That was all we talked about. But you're fucking lucky he crit.
Yeah.
So yeah, Gabe is like core memory unlocked, and Quick and Dirty's like core trauma induced.
Man.
I've toned it back a little bit since then.
Yeah. No, right. Yeah, that was that was pretty extreme. But at the same time, it's like I get it. I get why you would want to, but that's like those moments are why I play TTRPGs.
Yeah, but I'm telling you, if he did not crit there could have been a lot of nights of nightmares.
Let's be really clear. Let's be very clear about this. Are you worried about upsetting your children?
Yes.
Or are you worried about upsetting your wife?
Both. Because sometimes I have to deal with the nightmares too. Most times she does. I get that.
Yeah.
But like,
yeah. I don't know. I mean, I mean, I'm not one to say that I really liked scary things, right? And
I'm just saying when you make those tough choices, even if they weren't scary choices,
Right.
the kids, they break pretty fast.
well, and that's what I'm saying. It doesn't have to be scary.
Yeah, they still break.
Mommy dying.
Yeah.
That was pretty extreme.
And it was sudden too. They weren't ready for it, right? Like,
but like for me, yeah, like this is why I said maybe I would be really bad at this. It's like I like putting people into those kind of, I don't want to call them no-win, but let's call them no-win situations, right? Where I want the child to have that moment of grappling, because it goes down to like what you were saying before about maybe I should, where you're like, well, you're scared, but is your character scared? And even you, like obviously Sebastian was struggling with that scene, but he was like, no, I would fight. And it's like, okay, great. I do that even with adults.
You do.
Right? Where it's kind of like, I want to push you into a new level of consciousness or a new thought process, or challenge a bias or a prejudice or an assumption that you have, and let you explore that. You mentioned RPGs being therapeutic.
Yes.
And so I could see a kid the ability to deal with aggression, fear, concerns, anxiety. I mean, any number of issues that kids go through, and you can do that through the lens of TTRPGs. I think it's good for adults. I got to imagine it's good for kids.
100%. And I actually do think all that's fine. I guess my only advice for you for it is don't start with that, right? It's like anything else in a role-playing game. Have progression,
Sure,
right?
Sure.
And I mean, I don't mean don't do that. I mean like ease them into it in the sense that like, things that we would consider almost like a non-choice, starting with that, right? The most basic of choices. The hallway goes left and right. One way you hear water, the other way is eerily silent. Right? You don't want to just give them no choice. You want to give them some decision, right? And get them used to making decisions, because that going back with the 4E system, that's what I learned from watching them is, I would present these like what we would consider as veterans like very like safe just choices, right? Which way are we going to go? Well, typically it's not a life or death decision, right? Eerily quiet sounds like undead, right? Water, that sounds like maybe oozes. I don't know, we would say something like that, right? And as they got used to doing that, they actually came up with things like that. Like they I had a room that was eerily silent, and like, my wife looks to my dad and goes, undead, because like, again, they've been so adjacent to this. They got that, right? And so as they make more and more decisions, it gets easier to introduce them with tougher decisions, right? So I wouldn't like start a session, be like, hey, welcome to role-playing games. All right, your mother's dying. What do you do, right? Like
I second that point by Smith. I did. We do storytelling at night sometimes, and I'll just make up a story, and then they have to. Yeah. I'll tell them what's happening, and then they have to decide what they're going to do, and then I'll adapt the story. So imagine just playing theater of the mind at that point. And I did it the other day. Left was the water is pushing towards this way, and then to the right, the water feels like it's coming at you. What do you want to do? But getting them in that mindset of making decisions is actually as simple as left and right. And that's exactly what I did.
Starting with that, and then
she was having trouble with just making that decision. But now that you say it like that, I'm like, yeah, that's actually a good way to prep their minds to make decisions in life.
Right. Not just RPGs.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
exactly.
You gotta make a decision.
Exactly.
So I second that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah.
And 100%, like as you, and this is kind of like shifting into the more therapeutic side, but like as they get more experienced with it, right? With the game as well as that concept, you can introduce those elements. And I think those are very huge. So my daughter is she's 11 now, and like what's great is she's getting to that point where she's preteen and starting to get into like, who am I going to be? Mm-hmm. What am I interested in? How do I feel about things, stuff like that, like identity stuff, right? And these games are so great because like there's so many different choices that you can go and explore, right? And that's how she kind of approaches it, is like putting on someone else's like, shoes for a day and getting to walk around that, right? So I think younger kids are like I'm playing the game. It's me, you know, right? And so it's harder to kind of break that away. But as you get to a little bit more maturity, you know, and you can introduce like, oh no, this is a game where you can be someone different, right? Like, you know, that's something I think is huge. And particularly as you get into like teenagers or young adults and stuff like that, you know, it's, you know, in the last, like, you know, call it 10 years, you know, particularly in America, like, you know, things like diversity and acceptance of like different people, of, you know, faith, sexualities, all that stuff, you know, it's gotten a lot more attention than it has before, and a lot of people are much more like sensitive to it, right? And that's all good stuff. But like, you know, people who've been in this hobby, you know, for any amount of time knows that its roots were in people who were outcasts. And I'm not just talking about like, you know, people that like society today might classify as like, oh, you know, outcasts or a minority, but just also people who are like, you know, losers, right? Like, oh, you guys are a bunch of math nerds, you know, right? And so like going back to the roots of the hobby, you know, RPGs, D&D has always been about just including folks into it, right? And you know, it doesn't really matter who you are. Come here and play, right?
I've always said that too. Like it is by almost by its definition sort of an inclusive hobby.
Yeah. 100%, right? And in fact, you know, it was on the Hackmaster stream, like, but one of the things I loved about their opening thing in Hackmaster was like, you know, it doesn't matter if you're here because of math, doesn't matter if you're here because you like the role playing. What matters is that you're here, right? Come here and play. And so that's always stuck with me. I remember my first Gen Con just seeing just like so many different people, you know, people who, you know, on the surface look like, you know, just like, wow, I can't believe that person's a gamer. They don't, you know, look like a dork, right? You know, people like us, right? And people who, you know, are disabled or just different.
Every
and it was
time
just
I
like,
see Henry Cavill, like he's a huge Warhammer nerd,
Right?
or what's the
he plays
the Magic Mike guy?
He plays Warhammer. He
Channing
plays
Tatum.
World of Warcraft.
No, the one that's D&D guy.
Oh, Joe Manganiello.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sexy, gorgeous guy,
Yeah.
and he's a huge D&D nerd.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean Henry Cavill's like the GOAT. Though.
He is the goat.
He's the goat.
Yeah,
I mean,
he plays everything.
I mean, not only does he play everything, but he's like deep in the tank.
Yeah.
Deep. I mean, the whole Witcher thing was just.
But then he played Superman. Now he's going to be in the Warhammer movies or whatever. I mean, he's deep.
I never saw the show because I don't even really know The Witcher. But isn't one of the reasons he left the show
Yeah.
because they were like,
Yep.
fucking
They
it up?
were fucking up the source material, and like this is a guy who
He said,
like
"I'm out."
He read the books way before he ever thought about getting the part.
Right.
When they were like, we're making a Witcher show, he was like,
That's me.
I need to do that.
Yep.
Right. Like
Right.
that's for me.
Which is basically what happened with the 40K.
Oh, when Amazon was trying to they couldn't do it at first, I guess, because he was Superman.
Right.
And then when he like got let go,
Yeah.
the next day it was like Amazon, when we're releasing a 40K series,
Right. I think
and
he's a
Henry's going to be the guy.
producer. Yeah, and I think he's like a producer.
He's like the executive producer or something. On
Oh
it.
yeah, you better learn from the Witcher.
And he's gonna be
like,
in it.
I'm not gonna let this one get fucked up.
Right.
He's Adeptus
Yeah.
Sortus, I think. That's his army.
But
No, Adeptus
Custodes.
Custodes. Yeah,
Yeah,
the
he's a
golden
Custodes.
Custodes guy.
this hobby is
Those are the super space marines.
Oh yeah.
so great and so welcoming to bring people in, and then it's a place to explore, right? Like you were mentioning before, like dealing with things like aggression, you know, dealing with like some darker subject matters, right? Like it can be a safe place, right?
Yes.
You know, particularly like if the DM is aware and respectful of the subject and understands where his players' comfort zones are, it can be a place where you can go in and explore this stuff. And that is so important and so huge because, you know, I gotta tell you, like kids struggle with so much. Like when like school, right? You know, my kids go to a Catholic school, and it is just the amount of like pressure and conformity that they want and obedience. Like, you know, you will dress like this, you will not speak out of turn, you will do these things, they will be done at this time. There's so much of that on there that like it's so hard for these kids to find a healthy way to express themselves, and they need to, right? People are not commodities. They do not fit nice and cleanly into a 9-to-5 box, right? They are individuals with their own loves, their own passions, their own desires. And if you don't find a way to channel that, then it's going to come out in an unhealthy way. And this is where a lot of people struggle, right? And
Right.
you know, is D&D a magic tool that can fix everything? No, of course not. But can it be used as a very healthy way to explore these things? 100%.
Well, and I mean,
You can clip that too.
I mean,
I like that
I
as
mean,
well.
And again, I mean, I say this as someone who spends plenty of time on a computer each day, whether it's for my work or for my hobby. I'm not as bound to my phone as some people, but
I'm glued to mine.
I know you are. But it's got to be better getting around the table with the family and playing like a real game than just them
100%.
Sitting on their iPad or whatever, right?
Well,
even back to your point about like introducing the safe places, and that's why I think I said I kind of screwed up a little bit, making it a little too scary. But I wanted to introduce some a little bit because I want them to face these challenges in a safe place. This is a kind of scary situation. Let's overcome that. I went a little bit too scary.
So I think the thing
I'm learning.
Mirth and mayhem.
Yeah.
And this is how I kind of approach it, right? We talked before about different DM styles, and my style is very reactionary, very passive, right? Like I really put myself into the place of like I'm not a train conductor on the railroad, right? I gotta make sure my characters and players have like things to interest them, right? Hooks and stuff like that.
Oh, we will sit there spinning our wheels, and Smith will sit there for an hour, just like waiting on you.
Yeah.
And by the way, just a reference, I'm not like that.
Derek is not all like this. Is actually one of the things that we differ on very much. But in this case, it's helpful, right? And what I mean by that isn't sitting there passive. If your group is stuck, particularly if they're a new group, you gotta get them unstuck, right? If Derek and friends are stuck, listen, I know Derek and Tim and you guys know how to fucking play this game.
Right.
If you're dicking around, the best punishment is to let you do it because I don't give a shit. You guys are wasting your own time.
But that makes a lot of sense because my instinct in that situation, right, would be to kind of push the kid to make a decision and sort of enforce it on them.
Yeah.
Right. And I think you're right. Like if it's their decision, if they own
agency.
It. Yeah, right.
And by the way, this has helped me with the kids not breaking down. And you'll note, like, the one kind of fuck up I did was taking away like that agency by being like, "What are you gonna do, Sebastian?" Right? Like making it like him and I having a conversation, right? This has helped with that. It's helped with my wife, not like the significant other problem, right? Because I'm not there as me. I'm not there as Dad. I'm not there as Aaron, right? Like I am Dungeon Master. Well, yeah, and I'll remind them that because sometimes they'll have a conversation, right?
They'll appeal to authority, but not the authority of the game, but the authority of you.
Well, like they'll ask me something that's not about that's not appropriate for me to answer, right? They'll ask me like, well, what do you think this guy's gonna do, right? Like things like that, and I'll have to remind them and be like, I'm not here. I am a voice in your head. Now, if you want me to tell you what you think they might do, of course you can make an insight check, right? And one of the things I always try to do is like whoever is the character in focus, I try to tell them things the way their character would look at it, right? So if it's my dad, it's all like cold chills and evil presence, like because he's the paladin, right? Things like that, right? My wife is like the bard, right? So it's more of just like lore, random things that she might have picked up, right? I always shape the
Vomit
experience.
swarms.
Huh? They playing PF2 now?
Vomit swarms.
Vomit swarms, apparently, yeah. The masters of the occult. I try to shape that to and intentionally make that bias, right? I intentionally try to be an unreliable narrator to them, and they know that, right? And so I'm not there, and they're not like dealing with me. They're not asking me things. Like it's always, what do they do? And they do a thing, and I tell them what happens, and then like, now what do you do? Right. And so what that does is it teaches them that I'm not the bad guy. I'm not here to fuck you over. You're not going up against me. Right. You're making decisions and this is the situation. And we're all kind of watching this together, including me. Right. I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Right. So what are you going to do about it? Right. And yeah, not forcing them is key because if they do come across something that's super scary, right, well, they can walk away if they're not ready for it. They can think about it. They can talk about it, right? They can talk to each other about it, right? And that's an important lesson too.
They all ran away from the ghosts in this, and I was like, I could not see that happening. They're like, we're out of here. The ghost said leave.
They're like, ghosts are too much.
The ghosts in this thing said the ghost said you need to leave here, and they're like, okay. And I was like, whoa, I wasn't ready for that.
But like we talk about like overcome the challenges. One of the things I want them to learn, if I was to have an agenda, right, is, well, don't look at me to overcome that challenge. Look at each other.
It's like
look
within.
at each other, right? So you talk about comfort, like there'll be things that sound scary, right? Like my wife's like, "Oh, I don't want to do that. That sounds scary," right? And they'll talk amongst themselves, and my dad would be like, well, what if we did this? What if we did that? Right? And they'll come up with a plan, and then they find comfort within themselves. They find comfort for each other. And that's the lesson I want to take, right? It's like, don't rely on me. Don't rely on your character sheet. Rely on each other.
Yeah.
Right?
That's a good point.
You are a party, right? And that was like after that first awesome fight, like I stopped to just kind of really like hammer home. I was like, this is why you won.
Right. You got HP, I got family, you know?
I mean, yes, family, right? Like 100%, right?
I wanted to get. Oh, sorry.
Because that and I'm almost done. That empowers them, right? So like, don't take their agency away. Let them come to it. Guide them to that if you need to, gently. But let them come to it and let them find their agency. Let them find their comfort. That's where they'll find their strength, and that is the lesson. Because after that, then it's whatever. Like they can do anything.
I agree. I was gonna say I had one more story where I played Tiny Dungeon.
Yeah.
With just my 2 kids and my wife, and my wife was more like a guide for the kids because they can't read. And I said, all you know is you hear some poker chips, that's your health, and everyone has 2d6. They have 3 in case they got advantage, and I'll put a monster out, and that's all you need to really know. You tell me what you're gonna do, and we'll roll dice. That's how we're gonna do it. And this, I think this is a really fun story, and the reason I'm saying is because you guys can do this at home if you have really young kids. I made the room interactive to our game. So I had a little dungeon, and what they had to do was the seasons were all messed up. The 4 seasons were amok. They had to figure out the puzzle and put the 4 seasons back together, and then it would save the realm from disaster. So they went to these different rooms, and each room had a puzzle or a trap in there. And what I did was one of them was a monster, and they beat him, and the puzzle piece was on his back. And I, okay, cool. Now I got a puzzle piece. The next one was like a riddle, and they had to figure out the riddle, and the riddle was something in the room that we were playing in. So now the kids were not only solving the riddle, but then they were searching around the room for the puzzle piece.
Yeah.
And I remember one of them, the one I did this, is like the room starts to fill with lava. Okay, and they're like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, but not just that.
Lava.
Not just that room. The room you're in right now." And I had purposely placed tiles on the ground, and they're like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, now your chair is all you got." So, and the puzzle, the thing says it's at like the king of the jungle. And they're like, "That's a lion," and they're looking around the room like, "Oh, there's this silly animal lion tile." So they're hopping on tiles in the room to now hop to the lion piece, and it's underneath there. And then the last one I did, I thought was really fun, was when the lights, when it's dark outside, only the stars glow or something like that. And they're like, what does that mean? And I was like, it probably means we got to turn off the lights. Turn off the lights in the room. Well, obviously, since we've been in there for like half an hour, I had a couple glow-in-the-dark things, and it started to glow. And over there, they're like, oh, it's over there. So turn the lights back on, go over there. And there was the 4th
Bob
piece.
basically made True Dungeon.
He made True Dungeon.
Okay,
yeah.
well, I don't know what that is, but they loved it. So I was like, if you at home could make it interactive, the kids will get really into it.
I'm going to try the lava jumping game with my dad's and report back.
I need to hear that from
Beowulf says, I wish Smith and Bob were my mom and dad. No, yeah, I mean, True Dungeon, I know it came up about Origins. I mean, True Dungeon is basically an escape room.
Oh, someone did bring that up.
But,
Okay.
but it's D&D themed. And so you have like a class and stuff like that. And in fact, I don't know how it's done nowadays, but when I went, before I went into the dungeon, which is again a series of rooms, and there's like a game master who goes with you because it's not all like completely automated. So there's like someone who shepherds you through it. And my class was the bard, and I don't really remember what else I could do. But before we went into the dungeon, you had like this 10-minute, 5-minute prep period, and they gave me this, fake, but obviously like prop,
like a tome. Yeah.
And I had to give it back before we entered. And inside of it were like 20 symbols, like glyphs, runes, and below it would say water.
Little they know
fire,
Derek has a photograph memory.
danger. And then they took it back from me. And then I went into the True Dungeon. And it wasn't like, so there'd be randomly, like, I would see that glyph. And if I could remember, I'd be like,
recall knowledge.
That means
real recall knowledge,
right.
too.
I'd be like, wait. That either means danger or healing.
That looks so close.
They purposely made them like very similar.
That's kind of sweet.
That's hilarious.
And hey, we just had a $15 tip
from Anonymous.
Anonymous, if you If you want to claim who you are, maybe you forgot to put your name in. We'd love to give you the shout out. But Anonymous here says this topic is important and hard. Thank you for giving it so much respect. Look at each other to overcome that challenge. Absolutely.
Yeah, there's a lot I think you guys can clip from Smith's talks tonight. I think there's some really good points that drive home really well.
Just don't kill mommy.
Beowulf says, wasn't me, but I'll claim it. But yeah, anyway, so True Dungeon is basically that. And so I was like the bard. And again, I could, and so the game works like that same way where you're kind of interacting and it's become like a multi-million-dollar company because it was so effective with people.
Well, I didn't know that. I just did it on a whim because I wanted my kids to be, again, I've always wanted to just make sure my kids were entertained.
I had fun doing it.
Well, there's apparently one at Origin that
I mean, like combat is usually done with like a shuffleboard.
Oh, like,
and so like there's like a shuffleboard and then there's like, the head and it's worth 10 points of damage. And like the chest is worth like 5 points of damage. And like if you're the fighter, they give you like a big old
that's kind of sweet.
But if you're like
wizard,
yeah, it's just nothing.
That's kind of cool. That's actually pretty cool.
So it's pretty.
Oh, maybe I'll see if I forget who mentioned it, but maybe I'll sign up or something.
Yeah,
like that.
and I don't remember exactly everything, but I mean I don't think we fully beat it. I think it was tough.
Oh, cool.
But anyways,
well, my kids fully beat it because winning is everything.
But if you like escape rooms, it can be really fun. But anyways,
I love escape rooms.
The interactive part there is pretty cool.
Yeah, the kids really liked it. And again, what I do is I really want the kids to be entertained. When I played Thank You No Evil, they were bored and they just wanted to stop. And then they're going to go back to the tablet or something like that. I want them to be entertained and engulfed in the experience and really interactive with the world or whatever they're doing. And I've had a really good success with Tiny Dungeon, and I've had pretty good success with Dragonbane, though I say this a little bit older. But Tiny Dungeon, you really can play with young kids.
Now, you are playing currently 4th edition with your family, your 6-session one-shot.
Yes.
But and you did that, again, for very specific reasons, mostly because of the fact that everyone had played the MMO, they knew the roles, and the 4E roles relied on.
RFC wants us to play Eldamon.
Oh, we already talked about Eldamon, RFC. We specifically brought up, I said, yeah, like about
they're over there.
playing with cutesies.
Yeah,
like,
I can't remember if I ordered that or not because I was waiting for it to come in because I figured my kids would love it. So,
but what would you say in general would be like the system or two that you would really look to?
Again, you got depends on the group and the makeup, with it.
Like, do you think it ever makes sense to play a game like literal BX where it's like you go to 0, you're dead? My feeling is no.
I mean, maybe
Probably not.
everyone's older. I think that's fine
That's
if you're
true.
like,
like if you're like Stranger Things age, like if they were all like 11, 12, 13 or
100%.
something like that.
100%.
Yeah. They'd be like, oh, dude, that was so cool how I died.
Yeah,
It's probably true.
you want to get to the age where like they're reading the rule book for fun, right? So
Yeah.
I think being able to read is a good stepping stone to getting into the RPGs.
100%.
I mean,
that's how
I remember reading the D&D book for the first time, man. It was life changing.
I love reading
In general.
the PhB, just like I love reading D&D books,
Yeah.
I easily grew up on that, imagining all the different campaigns that I
New
was going to have.
new
play
stream
it,
typical. Derek goes back and reads something like the 2nd edition player's handbook.
Yeah, I mean,
cover to cover, boys. and
Picking
girls,
up-
cover to cover.
not the black one, but the first one,
The first one.
and
first
the
printing.
smell and the binding,
So good.
like that is.
You know what game does have a great smell?
Is it Forbidden Lands?
Oh,
Dragonbane?
yes. Dragonbane. I
It's
said
'cause
that when I opened the book.
It's got the cheaper paper or whatever.
I don't know.
It's better though.
Maybe it is the cheaper paper.
They said it's cheaper, but I swear it's
But
better.
this smells like the 2nd edition player's handbook. It really does. Oh yeah,
Because the paper's not that glossy paper.
Which
It's
makes
that,
sense.
it's that cheaper
It's
stuff.
basically a second edition.
I don't
Supposedly.
know, but it's got a nice tooth to it.
I'm
though.
telling you, I like it. I like it a lot. Someone was saying
Roll
it was
for
cheaper.
Roll for Combat probably knows, but
Yeah,
like
RFC knows.
I did appreciate the smell of this book. The GURPS 4E character book had an awful toxic smell. All right,
that sounds appropriate.
that sounds
for
about
GURPS.
right. That sounds about appropriate.
Yeah, I like when you were talking about like this type of system. Like I think Tiny Dungeon is a great system. Not Tiny Epic Dungeon, which is a board game, which one of our patrons bought thinking it was Tiny
Oh, yeah,
Dungeon.
there's Tiny Epic Dungeon.
Yeah.
That's like a board game.
Yes, Tiny Dungeons is a great, super simple system. Uses tiny D6, and then I would say the simpler you can find of a D&D type game.
Right.
is
And
probably
I've
really
said this
good.
before, even though I don't play with kids.
Well, you said too simple might be bad too. So you gotta know your group.
You know your group. You
Yeah.
know. Actually, we're gonna do a little experiment this weekend, which I gotta figure out how the hell I'm gonna do it because I'm pretty busy this week. But I was noticing that like the group was getting good at making decisions. They were having a lot of fun exploration and stuff like that. And
now it's time for Hackmaster.
well, someone made a joke. About
someone I think did say.
and I was
that.
like, honestly, it's just like, yeah, you want your people to not be bored when it isn't their turn, play Hackmaster, right? But don't think we're not there. Maybe when they're 11. But we're actually gonna. I don't know. I was about to say take a step back. Technically, take a step forward and try a little 5e, because now that they kind of like know 4e is really good at like defining what things are. Now that they have that definition for things, I'm interested to see how they would do in a more looser game, because they are having so much fun now making those choices and playing exploration.
Oh, so you said the exploration, yeah.
And now
Yeah.
they can all make Sorkadins.
Well, and they're not that aware of the bustiness of it, but like, I will say like 5e has just a wealth of options in terms of like the different races. Like if you look at Monsters and Multiverse, they added like, I don't know, 20, 30 races, all ones that Derek and I would hate, but things that Alex would love.
Right, your daughter would love.
Like, what flavor of animal do you want to be?
I
Right?
thought you were gonna go Fabulous Ultima for your dad.
He's interested into that. He's like, this is Final Fantasy, right? He just wants to play Final Fantasy all the time. He's the way I am with D&D, with Final Fantasy, which I can respect. But like, because they've like kind of gotten over that hurdle, I kind of want to see where it's at, because like, 5e's got some crunch. It's more than basic, which is nice, but
I mean,
parts of it just.
I brought 5e up here because I was like, this book can definitely be. Oh, you could play to that new group. Like you just don't make it complicated. Play
Things like
level 1.
Advantage are so great.
Yeah, so easy.
You play 5e, you ignore feats.
Yep.
I think you ignore skills, even potentially.
Yeah, you could just use attributes if you want to.
You can just use attributes.
Yeah.
Oh, you're
Actually,
proficient with strength? Cool.
Makes sense.
You get to add your bonus. If you're not, you're good at strong stuff. And I think for 5e could work really, really well. Now, the
100%.
game I've never played with kids, but the game that I've always talked about is Fate Accelerated Edition. And the reason specifically is because Fate Accelerated Edition is such a generic system.
Sure.
And you have like the 5 approaches. Now, in Fate, you can customize these. And technically, you can customize them in Fate Accelerated Edition. But by definition, it's like quick, flashy, strong, tough. It's how you do it.
I see they stole my
Yes,
game
right.
design for my
the
Fast
thing
and Furious game.
The thing that's cool about Fate, of course, is you can make it into whatever thing the kids are
fit
into.
it into whatever.
If you want to make it into Harry Potter, you can make it Harry Potter. If you want to make it into, I don't know, SpongeBob, you can make it into SpongeBob, right? Because it's all just defined by the aspects.
My kids do want me at some point want me to run Avatar Legends. So
that'd be sweet.
because they're big Avatar fans.
Now, obviously, Avatar Legends is a fairly complex game in terms of the components.
I said we'll think about it. I'm not busting that one out right away.
Not just yet.
Not just yet.
I mean, that game, I need to do another stream about that game. I do think there is a wealth of amazingness in that game.
I'd play it again.
Just because the balance system, I think, is so good.
I love it. Oh, it's so good.
And the ability in it, and it's got that kind of Monster Hearts-esque component, which I really like about it, where you go to heal me in the game, and succeed, and I deny you, give you a condition, right, but then you get to shift my balance, right, because you got under my skin, right. That's why I blew up at you. That's why I pushed you away. And so it's just like there's this really fun player. I don't want to call it PvP because it's not PvP, but a lot of the moves are player facing.
No, but like row interactions.
Yeah,
right?
It's about the people interacting with each other. The Avatar is not so much about you versus the world. The world has an impact on you. It's about you versus you, yourself, but also how the people around you are shaping you. I think it's
great,
fantastic.
Yeah. And I think Avatar would be a great tool for a group that was emotionally available to appreciate that, right? So that's why you like I don't want to bust out right now, but like as they get a little bit older, I think that Avatar would be great for that because of what Avatar is exploring,
and it helps that they like Avatar, like the show
100%.
and stuff like that.
Yeah, right.
That's just they're gonna feel engaged.
You lure them in, right? Because
Yeah.
bending's awesome in Avatar, right? And I'm just, it's not even like 4E, right? Where like you have an account part, you just do it, right? And Alex is like, that sounds amazing, right? Because that's not what the game's about. Now she doesn't need to know that, right?
Little bait and switch.
Little bait and switch there.
You know who also did that? Magpie. When they saw, they never said like the game wasn't about bending, but people got that. They were expecting to have the elemental avatar from Eldamon, right, which is to have like there's
like the kineticist.
I don't know if you guys saw that. We did Eldamon. The way the elemental avatar works is there's like there's like 20 different elements. So like because it's like Pokemon, you know. So like there's like shadow and light, and there's more that they haven't even released yet, like time and space. But then all of those powers sink into the elemental avatar. So it's like you have like a crazy, insane amount of.
That sounds like something those guys would do.
Yeah, it's actually kind of disturbing.
What's funny about the bait and switch though is like you and I were actually like, oh, is this game gonna suck? Because like, is it gonna be all about bending with feats? And then when we looked at it, we're like, oh, bending is like not even a mechanic, like in the traditional PbtA sense. This game's about like characters and emotions and we were like, this is amazing. And meanwhile, there's this like huge like, what the fuck this game? Where's the bending? I don't have any bending feats.
Right. I want to know how much damage I did with this sick fire bend.
Right.
And again, actually, and people were like, it's so funny because when I was on RFC stream, I was saying that like a lot of people wanted that. It's fine. And I said, maybe if you play 5e,
two Pathfinder
I was
options.
like, I was like, you could go play Eldamon, you could go play 5e Eldamon, you could go play Pathfinder 2 Eldamon, or you could play the Kineticist. And someone's like, why would you do that? You're talking basically about Avatar Legends. I was like, oh, dude, this is some random person. I was like, I like pulled out like all 4 books. I was like, I know Avatar Legends. Okay, I'm very familiar with the game.
Derek pulls back his hair and he's got his arrow.
He's got the arrow.
It's like on his
Derek's eyes start glowing as he enters the Avatar state.
The Avatar theme.
Before we get into the last part of, I guess, our show tonight,
we're gonna wrap up.
I wanted to do an honorable mention to a game that's not a TTRPG.
Okay.
But it is a young kids game that has a ton of adventure-driven elements to it. It's more of a board game, and that is called, this is from Lucky Duck Games. This one's called Quest for the Moonstones, and they just came out their second one, The Old Oak Prophecy.
I like the art.
It's super kids friendly, and my kids at 5 and 6 love this game, and it does a really good job of making the kids try to solve things. So it has this one in particular, the first one has a board, and you go to different locations, and you have to. It's crazy. This is new age technology. You go to a place in the town, and it has a QR code. You guys are gonna
Derek's like, I already hate this game.
Okay.
Wait, I have to use my phone to play this game?
You cannot play this game without a phone. Just letting you know, Derek. Just letting you know.
When's the last time you even had your phone at a D&D table?
That's a great question.
Probably Gen Con, because you were traveling, and so your phone was on your body.
No, it was during Dark of Winter, because you snapped at me. I was posting something onto the Discord. I was taking a picture of the game, and I missed something or whatever, and I wasn't paying attention. And you were like, "Hey, if you got something else better to me, I'm happy to do it." And I was like, "Oh no, sorry, I was just posting to the Discord." But that was probably like the last.
That's probably
time.
this game. You have to obviously have it.
It shamed me, and I put it.
That's fair.
But what's cool with this is
you and I have a strong like fuck you phone policy.
Yes.
I do. I hate
so you
phones.
scan the QR code, and then it brings up a virtual reality place. So you'll be like at the town hall or at the city. Now you can turn your phone around and you could see everything in the town. It becomes like the room.
So it's like AR.
AR, but it's not your house. Obviously, it's in the realm.
Not on your Oculus Rift.
And
your
not
Apple.
yet.
What's it called? The
Apple
Google,
Pro?
Apple,
No, Apple Vision.
Apple Vision.
Oh yeah, you got the new ones, the Apple Vision.
Yeah.
You got the Quest, and you got
Quest, the metaverse one.
I think they just came off a new one.
Samsung's got one, I think, too. But either way, you look around, you find characters and items in there, and you put that on your like thing, and now you can.
So what's everyone else doing?
So you give it to a kid, and they'll do that, and then they might tell their kid, "Hey, I saw an apple and a net and a giant." And so you find those cards, and those cards all have QR codes on them too. And basically, what you're doing is trying to solve a mystery. In this case, the quest for these moonstones. But you're basically trying to figure out, where do I need to go?
Stuck for $2.99. You can unlock Quest Stones Premium.
There is expansions, but basically
DLC.
It is DLC. But that adds 2 more adventures to the already 5 adventures you get for the base game. But what is cool about it is you get all this stuff, and the kids start to go, okay, well, we have to find this, so we maybe we should go back to that place with that one person and ask them a question about this other thing. And I was like, I've never played a board game that was doing that. And so this has a lot of.
So are they asking you?
Nope.
Or is there another QR code?
They just have to figure out where they have to go.
So what are you doing?
I am scanning QR codes.
So there's no game master.
No, I am. Well, I'm reading the.
I know.
I'm reading the prompts on the thing, like and I get it in the voice of Merlin. I'll be like, oh, interesting character. You know, I'll try to do the voice, and the kids are like,
Is that because they can't read?
They
or
can't
because
read.
you're bored?
And both. I'm trying to facilitate the game as well as they can't read.
So really, they could just play this by themselves. In fact, I see it here.
Yep.
Number of players 1 through 4.
Yep.
So
They
you could
absolutely
solo
could
play
play.
this
Yep.
if you have a phone.
To be fair, there isn't many RPGs or board games, by the way, for that matter, that are made anymore that aren't one.
Dragonbane has a solo
Sure.
mode.
Yeah. Yeah.
Forbidden Lands has a solo mode.
Yeah.
Wow. I did not know that. But everyone's I just like
I'm just saying board
what's
games
cool
are doing
about this
it too.
game is
Nobody has friends anymore.
That's true. My kids now they want to go on the next adventure.
That's great.
And solve the next problem. And it's tying really nicely into TTRPGs where they go on these adventures and have to solve these problems. Now they don't do the QR codes. They need to roll dice. But
they got the mechanics of thinking through the problem.
This was a fun intro, and it's super light and very fun-hearted and whatnot, and the kids absolutely love it.
Yeah, I mean, I would say like
it's not TTRPG.
Right, I was gonna say if you don't think that your kids could handle that level of
Correct.
intensity,
This is the game for you. So honorable
it could be
mention.
emotional intensity. It
Yeah.
could be intellectual, mental intensity, and it could even be the social intensity. Right? I imagine depending on who you're playing with, some kids might be. I'm sure Sebastian and Alex are comfortable with each other, but like if you're playing with some neighbors' kids with your
100%.
kids, they might. There might be some friction there.
Yeah.
So
Honorable mention this, but if you're doing actual TP, this is a nice gateway to get into a tiny dungeons.
right.
Or
And then rather
Hero
than play
Kids,
tiny dungeons, you should pick up tiny taverns
where we can do chores.
where you can do chores, and that's really teaching them the way that you want to go.
Wait a minute. I did make that interactive.
A slice of life fantasy role playing game where you guessed it, you run a tavern.
Right. So you're like, all right, guys.
Oh, and then it's
now-
attacked by orcs? No.
No.
It turns out there's a big convention across the street, and there's going to be a lot of hungry and thirsty people.
I'm going to take Bob's advice with making it interactive and be like, all right, guys, first you have to find a kitchen. I'll give you a hint. It's upstairs. Second, you have to do the dishes. And if you do that, you'll get an experience point.
To be fair, we played one of our earlier-ish 3rd edition campaigns, which we played on and off for many months or for many years.
Many years.
And some players came and went, and some people came back and stuff like that. But by and large, we went 1 to 20. And as we reached the end of the campaign, one of our players, Rich Camp,
I love Rich.
Rich Camp, at the end of every session, there'd be pizza boxes and 2-liter bottles and, all over the place. And I would basically always bribe Rich with experience points to help me clean up.
Yep.
And, it was a trivial amount. But as they got to the final part of the last adventure, after many years of this, everybody was excited because they leveled up to level 20. But as the final experience points came in, Rich had enough to get to 21.
Ooh.
He was the only one that made it to epic
He
level.
was the only one, and
Damn.
at the epic level handbook had just come out within the last probably 6
That's
to 8
actually
months.
kind of sweet.
And so it
was
didn't
awesome.
matter because the campaign was over. Except it did matter because that ended up forming the basis.
Yeah, that was the entire foundation for 4E campaign.
For our 4th edition campaign, for a later 3E campaign that we played, because it became part of our basically our MCU, right? Like our
I like that
TTRPG cinematic universe
Yes.
was based around Rich's character, basically outperforming everybody else.
I just like that he put in the work in the game, out of the game, and was
That's Rich.
extra rewarded for it.
Yeah,
Love
that's
it.
rich.
I love it.
100%.
My daughter's first RPG experience was something I made up. I called it Alex Quest, and it was a little
It's like Bob Quest.
a big magnet that we had on the fridge. And the way it worked is she got an experience point for doing certain chores. And then at the end of the month, if she got enough experience points, she could spend it on new powers. And the powers would be things like get a new video game, get a pizza or your choice of dinner, just fun little things like that.
It's like,
right?
I take the lucky feet.
Didn't have the lucky fee. It was a balanced game. It was a good game. But it was really good because it kind of made it fun, and started teaching that whole if you're gonna play a role playing game, it's about doing chores, right?
Well, someone mentioned in there, I know we got a Sean tip here. Well, someone mentioned there doing currency in your game because you could start to teach them about
Oh yeah,
money.
They were joking about taxes,
but
but
I mean,
Yeah,
teaching my
yeah.
kid because they get $1, they spend $1.
Yeah.
But teach them oh, you get the $1 and you could go buy that potion, but you're never gonna get that sword.
Yeah, you want that +1 sword? You gotta save up for it.
save up for
That's
it.
a
Yeah.
huge skill because
Yeah.
my
That's a
kids get
great
the
learn.
Roblox points, right? And they're out of it.
Robux.
Robux. I know.
Bro,
I am borderline boomer, right? But yeah, my kids will spend it faster than they get it, right?
yeah.
It's so fast.
Yeah, my Alex did an MMO, right? Like if you like try to like teleport anywhere, right? Or take a griffin, you have to like pay a fee or whatever, right? And like the number of times she would be broke, literally couldn't go to the zone we're going. I'm like, are you serious? You don't have 25 copper? And she'd be like, nah, Dad, I spent it. And so I had to give her like this loan of silver so she could just go to the place. I was like, all right.
And
That'd
the
be my
vig on
kids.
it is 25% compounded daily.
yeah.
You're gonna
My kids
always-
just spend it like no joke.
big shout out to Sean, who super chatted earlier, but super chatted again for $49.99.
Thank you, sir.
So actually completing our tip goal.
Which one was the? This was the
well, it's,
Thursday stream.
Moving the fuck out.
No, this was Chat Decides Thursday.
Super
Thursday stream.
Okay.
And Sean says great stream nights, very underrepresented topic. And since Sean basically showed up and crushed this,
He had two big tips.
Just have him pick
yeah,
it.
he had too big. So Sean, you get to pick Thursday's stream topic. Of course, it'll be just me back at home and doing my thing. But Sean, thank you so much for supporting us. And again, yeah, we're not going to talk. We didn't tell you what are the 5 best heroic abilities in Dragonbane or what the top 10 feats are in Pathfinder 2 Remastered. But that's what other
That
channels.
would clearly be the Warden's Reload.
Ward's Reload is top tier. I mean, once you're 16th level, of course. I mean, what are your other choices? Igniting Suns? Hey, I'm 16th level now. What can you do? Well, I can, without a save, send somebody to an extra-dimensional prison, which will potentially remove them for rounds, if not minutes, from the combat. And again, no save. What can you do?
What was Smith like?
No. Here we
He
go.
was like doing it like behind me.
There it is. Tactical cinematic
There it is.
maneuvering.
There it is.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Sean concedes his power to a Discord poll.
Just like Sean.
Just like Sean, just an honorable coward.
He was even he was even helping out. There was someone on our Discord that didn't have enough tickets to get into the Dragonbane game, and he offered up some of his tickets. He's just a really nice guy.
Yeah, you may not know this, but Bob and myself will run games for our patrons, and obviously, we have a thriving community games.
A lot of people in our Discord.
Tons of games, and those are all free with all of your patrons. I mean, you could play with however much, but of course, there's only so many Bobs and so many Dereks, and so many Smiths if you ever were to run one. But so when we run them, it costs these tickets, which you get as part of your higher tier membership, and some of them are pretty exclusive. So for Sean to give his away is pretty.
Sean's a nice guy.
Yeah. So
Actually, I'm hoping to find out maybe this year at Origins whatever happened to the assistant principal. Did he survive?
Fiasco Part 2.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we can't not have a fiasco.
The key here,
Steven loves it too much, so he's going to be like, when are we playing fiasco?
he will be, and he's driving down with me.
There you go.
Is he staying at the Red Roof Inn also?
No. I don't know where he's staying.
Because it's like I know Booth is at the Red Roof. Like we could be just doing this at the Red Roof Inn.
Steven
I
wants
could drink all night.
Steven wants to go to a Guardians game because he's never been
Yeah,
to
I
Progressive.
was gonna hopefully go
and
with
he's
you
one of
guys.
those. He's one of those people who wants to visit every stadium.
It's not that impressive.
And so he's
they're doing renovations this year.
so yeah. But I mean, if you're at that point, if it's part of your checklist, it's part of your checklist.
Fair. That's fair.
But he's gonna fly into Cleveland. We're gonna go see a game. Then he's driving with me or us down to Columbus. Then he's going to fly home from Columbus. But
Oh, he's gonna fly home from Columbus.
Yeah,
That makes sense. Okay.
That's not fair.
but in any case, the key is this year is no pitcher of margaritas for myself.
I actually,
Right. Derek actually wants to get into this
I
game.
actually want to be able to play the game.
yeah.
Since
I mean, we
pa-
should definitely get
since I
margaritas
passed up.
again,
I
but maybe
remember-
just not the amount that we had.
Actually, I remember like me being like, okay, like aware enough that I was.
Oh, you're a grown
very,
man. You were
very
like, yeah,
drunk. And I was
I'm
like,
drunk.
Oh, I'm drunk. But I was like, I just need to keep it together and be coherent enough that I can get them the fiasco stuff.
Yep.
So that they can find it.
and we didn't have everything.
I know.
we had the game.
We obviously
We made it work. It was
but
great.
I had brought like a bunch of white dice, a bunch of black dice.
Nah.
No, we had those.
No, we didn't.
We had the white lace.
What were we missing then? Index cards?
We forgot the index
Oh,
card.
that's what we forgot. We were
right.
tearing up
So
pieces
we found
of
some paper. We just tore
Yeah,
it
we were
up.
tearing up
Right,
paper.
right.
Yeah.
And I had big index cards.
Yeah,
and
we forgot the
Sharpies.
index
We like moved a ton of stuff around just to have this like zone that we could play in. We were up late playing that loud
Yes.
too.
Oh,
All three of my characters.
But by the
died.
time it was like midnight
Right,
or
but
1
you-
a.m., I was done. My buzz was gone.
Right. You guys had one of the strangest fiasco games of all
Yeah,
time.
it was inverted.
Because you had the inverted
Yeah, yeah.
fiasco game. Most
Everyone
of
was
the time,
drunk.
people sit down, they start drinking, and then by the time you get to the tilt, that's the midway point
Yeah.
where you roll the dice again and you add new elements. That's when everybody's drunk. And so the second act is when things get way off the chain.
Yeah, I don't know. Like,
But it
I'm
sounds
pretty
like
sure if someone watched that game, they would be like, "Oh, yeah,
yeah.
they were definitely drinking in that game."
Smith has some good voices. He played a multitude of different characters.
Sean, at this point, that's part of your MO, man. It's just not being the player, just showing up eternally. But actually, what I do want to do is we got a couple months out.
Yep.
Not to toot our own horns, but Knights of the Last Call is growing. Our patrons is we're almost 400 strong, and again, that's 400. No offense,
you people.
400 really good. Players and GMs. And look, a lot of people will be the first to admit
really
they're
knowledgeable people.
They're like, I'm new to this, or I'm relatively new to this, but they have the right mindset,
Yeah.
And not everybody, we don't all agree, and we squabble sometimes, but by and large, it's a very positive community, which is kind of all aligned, at least in the base direction. So
I will certainly say if you are new and open-minded and you're coming to learn, you are going to be very warmly received.
Right.
You can ask as many questions as you want. You're not going to annoy anyone, right? People don't start like getting squabbly until you come in and you're like you got a strong opinion, and then people are gonna be like, okay, yeah, let's see what's behind that opinion.
yeah, exactly. I mean, Beowulf's in the chat, and he and I we've gone a few rounds, on certain things. Like we didn't always.
I mean, like the first qualification to join Discord is that you disagree with Derek.
Correct.
Right? I mean,
but-
people literally give Derek money to be like, I disagree with you.
But what I'm hoping to do at Origins this year is be a little bit more organized, and obviously it's a work trip for us, but it's a fun time for us and vacation time for us too. But we can't play games with everybody.
Nope.
But what we're going to try to do is arrange stuff with some of our patrons, particularly some of our higher tier patrons, and say, hey, if you're going to be there, maybe we can run a couple of games, and I think that'd be kind of fun to
be sweet.
play out some games and try to demo some games, because again, that was the thing that was really lacking from me last year at Gen Con.
Right.
I didn't get to play really very many games at all.
Last year at Origins, we actually played a good amount of games.
We did.
I mean, I had fun playing. I played Oath, Root, Avatar,
Right.
Fiasco. I mean, all those are new games to me. Every one of those games was new.
Right. We played the fire game.
I didn't play that, but I bought it on your guys' opinion.
That's right. I played the fire
and
game.
the
Map making game.
cartography game, which is
game.
phenomenal group game, like a great for a board game group.
I highly recommend that. If you want a light medium game, it's not light game. It's a medium. It's a light medium game, but it plays really quick because everybody plays simultaneously. Cartography. I
thought it was cartography. It's amazing game.
Cartographer. It's a drawing game.
Yeah.
It's a what do they call it? What do they call it? A drawn.
I don't know what they call it, but it's
a drawn right or something. I can't remember.
It's like you can play 1 to 100 people because literally everyone plays at the same time. So it's incredible.
So
game.
you could play that game to draw like a battle scene for Hackmaster, which
true.
is also played in real time.
This is true.
So the battlefield's appearing as you're like running into it.
The one I wanted to play, which reminded me of drawing, was the Quiet Year. We didn't get to play that.
Right.
I was hoping to play.
So we
You
played,
brought it down.
We played. So that we did play at Gen Con.
That's in the kit.
I got that's in my kit. That's in my con bug out bag. And we had one night where we were at the lobby of the Hyatt, having a Patreon meetup, and someone's like, "Oh, we should play a game," and I was like, "Pull out the bug out bag," and we got to play with a couple patrons and a couple of their spouses who had come along for the trip, and it was fun, and I could see again, it's one of those things where it's really kind of interesting because these games you're new to this, but you started with me and Smith. You know what I mean? Like your exposure has been pretty much to the deep end of the pool pretty quickly, and obviously, we've had these experiences for a long
Wife
time.
says cartographers.
So I was right, and I don't own it, but a lot of folks, they have only played a small handful of games, and they watch the show, they're members of Patreon, but then like to see them being like to actually be like playing one of these weird ass indie games that Derek talks about all the time.
Yep.
It was kind of like they were kind of almost like deer in the headlights.
These are some good games out there.
Yeah, they're like, wow, this is
I'm
great.
playing the Quiet Year, Derek Melinda. Like,
yeah,
this is the sort of thing I only hear about on the internet.
Right. Well, not me per se, but just that seeing the game emerge and being like, wow, this is a different experience than I've ever had before with, say, traditional TTRPGs.
Yeah.
The way that the story is shaped and you're guiding it, but it's random and you don't have this kind of overarching control. And so it's again, I've talked about this from my perspective as the GM, this like life-changing moment for Steven when we played Avatar.
Oh yeah,
Legends.
Yes.
his eyes were opened
Because he
he had a few of those.
he was being
trip.
as he would even admit, he's like, I like to be the troll a little bit, the shit stirrer. And there was obviously this big thing set up between you guys and the Fire Nation.
Yeah.
And then he came in there and like said something like, oh, I'm not really that guy. And I was like, okay, well, that's a move that triggers. And he rolled like double sixes.
Yeah,
so I was like, yeah, they believe you.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, our bad. And he's like, wait a second, you mean you just completely threw away any concept of the game that you had in place because I rolled the dice and rolled well?
Well, he didn't know you had a concept of the game in the first place.
Well,
But this was his
vaguely had a
first
yeah.
time playing PvP, right? Or
Yes.
PbtA.
PbtA,
PbtA. Sorry.
PbtA, yeah.
Yeah, and
I
so,
love Steve's like, I
Yeah.
don't want to call it a redemption arc, but like you start off as like the budgetar.
yeah.
Right. But then at the end, we were like, damn, yeah, no, that's the avatar.
Yeah.
Right. And to be fair, it's because he like rolled nonstop.
Oh, he rolled
double
like
sixes.
hot.
Yeah, exactly. And to this day, Steven talks about the budgetar a lot. But even like the pen, I mean, I only threw in that battle at the end just because everybody was kind of like,
Oh, we want to test out combat.
we want to test out one round of combat
Yeah.
exchange. But by all intents, between Steven's actions as the budgetar,
Yeah.
and then your actions with the Fire Lord Commander, basically you dealt with all the threats.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, okay.
That was pretty straightforward.
That's pretty
Yeah.
straightforward. So I was just like, the Dai attack. Because I was like, because they're trying to start the war or whatever.
Yeah.
But like,
It was really like the Dahlia.
and then the Dai attacked, But yeah, like I did that just so we could have a combat exchange.
Yep.
But otherwise, I would normally have been like,
Yep. Next game.
yeah, good session, And everyone's like, oh, that was one of those horrible episodes of Avatar where nobody bent and kicked ass.
It's my favorite. I love the beach.
Yeah, I had fun. I can't wait for Origins this year. I think
Yeah,
it's gonna be a
it'll
great
be a lot of
time.
fun.
It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you to Sail Away. Thank you to our anonymous tipper. And thank you. Big shout out to Sean Clayton for his big super chats there tonight. He has the power of the conch. He holds the conch, but he's apparently going to pass it over to the Discord for their vote. So we'll be back.
We'll give him veto rights on the poll.
Yeah,
Oh,
he can
that's
do
good.
it.
I like
because
that.
there's always some asshole that's putting something on there.
We do have our TTRPG March Madness.
It's going to be starting tomorrow.
Coming to Twitter. Is that
Coming to Twitter/X tomorrow.
Twitter/X. Yeah.
and to our Patreon. So what I do basically is I will have I have like 32 games that our patrons voted on as the top games. Again, on the opinions of our patrons.
Do you seed them 132?
I will.
Okay.
I will based on how many votes they got. And then I'll be doing head-to-head March Madness. And that'll be for the patrons will vote as well as a little bit of X jump in there too in case there's a close one on the Patreon. Obviously, the X votes will come in and they could alter that. And then we'll just see who's going to win this year. And again, this isn't the most popular game or the best game. It's literally the opinion of people voting. Like it means zero.
The winning game will be our next AP. I'm lying about that.
I was thinking like the what did you call it, the golden mug or something like that's who gets the golden.
We should have a golden mug.
Yeah,
award.
that gets the golden mug award of 2024 is the
Yeah.
winner of the silly March Madness thing.
So Casey says, who won last year and who's the Cinderella dark horse for this year? I think we have an answer for both of
So
those.
PF2,
PF2
PF2
won
last year.
Yeah.
And
it was going up against
and
L5R.
and going into the finals last year
Yes.
was PF2 and
but
L5R.
last year I
yes.
separated them into 4 categories, which was D20, PbtA, D100, and other.
But the last one was just a straight up.
Correct. Well, it just didn't
Yeah.
matter. This
Yeah.
year is going to be just random
whatever.
because
like last
there's
year,
so
you couldn't have had PF2 and 5e in the finals because
correct.
they were both
PF2
in the
fought in the
D20.
semifinals.
They were in the,
where,
D20
again,
division.
our Patreon being more PF2 and my disc and not mine, our X and Twitter was more PF2. So obviously they beat out 5e.
Yeah.
Like if it was just a popularity contest, 5e would have won.
It came down to PF2 versus Legend of the Five Rings, and PF2 won.
Yes.
Now going into 2024's TTRPG March Madness, Pathfinder 2 is still
strong.
number one
Still
seed.
number one.
Yes.
But to answer Casey's question, who is a dark horse candidate? I think Dragonbane is going to have a very strong showing.
D-Bone was number 2, I believe.
I think it was tied.
2 or 3 or something like
two or
I
that.
three.
think FU was 3rd.
Call of Cthulhu was up there
Call
still,
of
which
Cthulhu's up
was
there.
very popular.
Yeah.
Fabula Ultima,
Fabula Ultima, of course.
Forbidden Lands, L5R. A lot of the games that Derek talks about a lot.
Yeah, they
are
were
up
they were
there.
in like the first 5.
Hackmaster up there.
Hackmaster got up there. I was like,
Got some Smith going on there.
I think Hackmaster beat out 4th edition.
I mean, obviously Hackmaster didn't have the kind of impression in the Discord community that Fabula Ultima and Dragonbone did. But for the people who got hooked,
Oh, they like
People who like looked at it were like, wait, this is good.
There's something here.
When we were presenting it, it definitely kind of like tied for it.
The Hackmaster Discord is kind of like, oh, we kind of like these
Pendragon.
guys.
Pendragon is super popular.
Yeah, that came out of nowhere.
Well, because we have a pretty big thriving Pendragon game.
Yeah,
that's true.
But I mean,
Yeah.
you
And
had that
Beowulf's
stream,
been
but
doing
yeah.
a really great job of like sharing his like suggestions and summaries, and that always generates interest. I mean, I'll say that for anybody who's a member of our Patreon or is thinking about joining and whatever. Like the best way to drum up interest for your game is to like do session logs.
Oh, yeah.
And
People
share
love
those.
that.
People love that. Yeah.
And then they sign up to play.
Traveler's up there. I know Traveler's up there,
That's no
which is a
surprise.
big,
Yeah.
obviously.
Traveler's definitely
Rick
a sweetheart
came.
of the
Yeah.
Discord.
Traveler is in weird. So here's
There's not many sci-fi's up there, but then there's a handful that are really strong.
I think Mothership was on there, too.
Mothership's on there.
Yeah.
we played a session 0 of Traveler.
I loved it.
Okay, I loved it.
I was super excited I had a
and
Space
then
Mortgage.
The next convention I went to, I picked up like 2 new Traveler
same,
books.
Same. We
And-
all
and-
did. George picked
guys
up
always-
Traveler.
yeah.
And this year at Origins, I'm planning on picking up a couple more.
Yeah.
So when are you gonna play?
I don't know. I think the book. I mean, here's the thing. It's one of those. This is true.
We
we
really like the game. I don't know.
I don't. Reading these books that have all the text, like the
Yeah.
stories and stuff. And people say, oh, they write it so that you can read it. Those are the books I don't want to read.
Right.
But when they go, here's a list of 10,000 engine parts.
Gear
I'm
porn.
like, gear porn.
Oh, this is amazing.
Now, I don't want to play. But the
Interesting.
difference is I don't want to play with the gear porn.
You
He's
want
like
to
looking
pass
at-
the gear porn.
I just kind of want to. No, I just kind of want to like read it, and I don't know how to describe it.
I think Rick was
I do
playing
wanna
a
play it.
game before our Alien game this last weekend, and he said something about like they were trying to transport exotic cheese or something to like another
That is
ship.
such a Traveler
And I was like,
thing
I
to
have no
say.
idea what's going on. This sounds ridiculous. And they're like, oh, it was a crazy game.
Well, and the thing, and I think we
Rick-
were talking about
Rick
this
will
with
tell it
Traveler,
better than
is
me.
that like Rick plays his Traveler very much like military sci-fi.
Yeah.
Right. And his Travelers are kind of more of like, elite commandos who, kick ass and take names.
Which sounds awesome.
which obviously is very awesome.
I mean, I love so many different kinds of sci-fi. I
Right.
can play that. I can play the Firefly.
Right. But that's the thing that's cool about Travelers. Like you can really do all those different, styles.
it's
of
a
game.
very diverse system.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, when we were playing, you guys all ended up being ex-Navy guys who bought a luxury liner and turned it into the Love Boat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sounds so ridiculous.
And then George ended up with like 3 ranks in like, not servant, but it was called like
the things that like take care of
valet, or something like that. It was like fancy servant, and
Like,
so
you need this skill to like take on like elite passengers.
if you want to take on like high
VIPs
tiers,
coming in.
VIPs, you need to have this. I'm sure
He's basically the companion from Firefly.
he's basically the compare. That's how I thought of it.
What is this? They're talking about Traveler, Jason.
Yeah. We're talking about Traveler, which is what is it?
The stream is about for kids. We've
Yeah,
moved on to the.
This is the after stream.
Yeah, this is the after show.
The what was
After
it called? What was
We used to have that on the AP.
Nights After Dark.
no. What was it called?
After it was night, not nightlife. It was like
The After? I don't remember what it's
Dark
called.
Night. What the heck was it called? The Nightlight.
No,
No, it wasn't one of those. Those are the main lines.
It was something after darker.
I don't think it was
What
that.
did we call it?
I don't know.
I thought we just called it the after show.
Yeah.
Oh man, I don't remember.
Jason says I always get here at the end of these. Yeah, Jason. Again, we're almost always live 7 to 9.
Wasn't it called the Late Night Show?
No, that's the name of
That
our
was the
podcast.
podcast.
Oh, that was the podcast. Okay, then our regular after show was just called the after show.
It was just the after
I think it
show.
was- or the after party or
the
something.
after party.
Yeah,
I know our podcast Late Night Show was the night one.
Now,
okay.
so this is something that Beowulf and I have talked about about this. Did you see the Wild Sea stream?
That's
I did
another
not.
random popular one that's on that list
Yeah.
too.
Also, I need to read that because it sounds cool.
It is very cool. And
Yeah.
and here's the thing. It's so weird. It jumps the hump. What
Bro, I'm playing a game where you have a station wagon driving through northern Oregon and like space time is falling apart. I'm good with weird.
I'm just saying, you know what the uncanny valley is, right?
Yeah.
Where like something is, it looks human, but not
Oh, yeah.
human enough, so it's weird.
So what's interesting about that is like that's like an evolutionary trait. So it makes you wonder, why do we have that trait?
right.
Oh, is this the things your kids are watching? You're talking about the.
You watch
Some
too
of
much
it.
of that.
Yeah. But like was there something that looked like us? Right? Was it like, a reaction to the other types of humanoids?
Yeah,
like
maybe Neanderthals or something.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But-
This is like, when you think about it, it's like, oh shit, that's disturbing.
Yeah.
That we have this genetic trait that's still here where we can like recognize, oh, it looks human. It's not human.
Right. Well, it's also kind of like how, like, if you take a baby and you put it face.
Whoa.
You put its face into water.
Whoa.
It will like seal its nose and its mouth. Its heart rate will slow down.
Oh yeah.
It's called like the mammalian diving reflex.
Don't they also like
You're not
roll
actually
onto their
drowning.
back like naturally?
Also too, like you could do this with a baby. Like if you had a broom handle and you had like a newborn and you put your newborn's hands onto the broom handle and let go of your newborn, it would hang there. It would grab onto it.
Really?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Because we're monkeys.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
But anyways, Beowulf says that there's an Age of Sail traveler hack you should check out. So Wild Sea is
That sounds sweet.
Wild Sea is so weird because you're flying, you're steering chainsaw ships
through the trees.
through the trees.
Yeah.
And I did like it. I mean, don't get me wrong,
Sure.
it was cool. And like again, like the things in it were so weird that it got over that uncanny valley. You know, like Leshies to me in Pathfinder 2 are too close to the uncanny valley. It's like
Right, but they don't go over it. In fact, that's why it's awkward.
it's why it's awkward. I wish they would go further.
Right.
And Wild Sea goes further.
Right.
But reading the Wild Sea, all I could think of is I just wish this was the Earth Sea, but not. It could just ships,
Just
normal
ships, yeah.
you know, and magic, just like Earthsea magic. But all these same rules would apply. I just really love boats.
Yeah. I'm right there with you.
You know, I don't need to be.
We've never really had a good boat campaign.
Never. The dolphin killed
We
us.
tried, yeah. You had Commander Riker ordering us on, and then Rich he was a ranger. He had a dolphin companion.
Yeah, he had a dolphin animal companion.
We literally got halfway through the first session before that campaign was over.
Yeah. Sometimes they end quick.
They explode sometimes.
Sometimes they explode. All right, boys and girls. Well, that's going to do it for us. Thank you so
Absolutely.
much for being a part of tonight's stream. Thank you so much for this important conversation. If you have any questions or comments or things that you would like to talk about, make sure to check us out. Leave a comment below. Well, you know, we read these. I read most of them. Yeah, even when they're hater comments,
Oh, yeah.
I usually
We love those. We
I
pin them at the
love
top.
those ones.
Give them a little
I
heart.
usually heart them and pin them at the top. I
Yeah.
want everybody to know.
So if you got a strong opinion about why we're wrong, that'll be the first thing everyone sees.
And of course, if you would like to support this channel, the best way that you can do that is by joining our Patreon, patreon.com/Knights of Last Call. We have $5 night tiers all the way up to $25 hero tiers. So, you know, it depends on what level of benefits you want. But you know what? If you give us $3, you are in the top 1% of people who support this channel.
You know,
So
the people like you are the reason why Derek and us can get together and talk about games that families and kids are going to enjoy.
right, exactly. Well, that is going to do it for us. On behalf of Mr. Smith and Bob, thank you guys. And we will see you next time on Knights of Last Call. Peace out.